I'd like to call the Budget and Finance Committee to order, and I've asked Mr. Roush to say the prayer and the pledge.
Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you for the time of season that we're in. Lord, we need your wisdom and we need your guidance in making our decisions. And Lord, we pray for what is best for Washington County residents. So God, be with us as we deliberate, as we discuss. And God, we look to you for that ultimate guidance. So God, I thank you again for this day. Thank you for everyone that's here, everyone that is interested for their love of Washington County. God, we thank you for loving us. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first thing on the agenda is Judge Zimmerman. It looks like she's not made it yet. And so, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, we need to adopt the agenda. Thank you.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
It's been, the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'm sorry, somebody here for Judge Zimmerman's office?
She just said she was able to run a little late.
Okay.
Judge Zimmerman's the one that's going to speak. She's running just a few minutes late. She was finishing up on some cases.
Okay, that's fine. We'll just move her down a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
And so the next thing we have is Judge Beaumont. Yep.
Thank you.
We've never had to do this before, so you may have to tell us what we're supposed to do. And by the way, for everyone who doesn't know, this is Casey Hassel. So she's my trial court assistant, and she kind of runs everything and does this. So that's why she's here. I'm more here for moral support.
So what precipitated this was that it's just a matter of, whenever you transfer money from one account to another, it's just something, a tool for us to keep everybody accountable. And so, are there any questions on this line item transfer? Yes, Ms. Masson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious if anybody lets you know that these budget rules were changed last year. Or did you think this year you were operating still under the same?
That is correct. I was unaware of that. Had I known that, I wouldn't have done the budget the way that I did to begin with. And now that I am aware of the changes, we've made those changes for next year's budget so that we wouldn't run into this issue.
Well, I don't thankfully have a big understanding of how the courts operate. So is each elected official, like a judge, responsible for updating themselves, or is there some other entity outside of the judges that kind of keeps y'all up to speed?
Well, really, it would just be email. I would have assumed I would have gotten some sort of an email or some sort of somebody coming to me to say this is what we're doing from now on, but I don't recall ever knowing that.
Maybe the comptroller's office?
Yeah, someone who would have passed that message along, so.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Eva Masson?
So one of the questions I had was, so since Judge Beaumont is not doing many civil cases anymore, I thought we would be getting a lot of her jury money back. And so when I see that it's being divvied up to a lot of other expenses, that kind of makes me worried. And I think the one that gave us all the most pause was cable, why we have an expense for cable TV.
It's for Wi-Fi because the Wi-Fi in the historic courthouse is not really good, and so they made us do a booster. We don't have to pay for cable. We get that free.
Okay.
It was just part of the service.
Well, I think it would be good for us to understand some of the unanticipated charges and where they're coming from, just because we looked at it and it looks like you're paying for cable TV, which is obviously just the category. But I don't know if you could go through the line items that are needing some fund replenishment and try to give us an explanation. Because I know a lot of people have had computer expenses. We're seeing that from a lot of folks.
Yes.
But some of these others seemed a little bit, just, we didn't know how to explain them.
The drug, okay, so the drug testing, I know that has definitely went up, and that wasn't really as expected. We kept some of that jury money because I've always been used to just moving money around, and I just kind of kept it that way. But we need more money in that specific line item, so there was a lot of negative in that line item to begin with when you guys first looked at this. I noticed today when I ran this report, it has been adjusted since then. So there's been some areas that have now been covered that aren't showing negative anymore. So there has been money moved around. I'm just not sure how that occurred. But our drug kits, our drug testing have been up.
They're way up because of
Yeah.
our numbers in drug court. But the good thing about that is that's money y'all get back because we charge our participants for the drug test. So that money goes back into the fund. So honestly, the more money we transfer into drug test, the happier y'all are because then it doesn't end up coming out of the county fund.
Okay, that's good.
And another one that has been up is also the mileage. And we have an employee that travels back and forth from Madison County, and I think that was a little more than we had anticipated too. And it's just something that I didn't plan better for last year when we did the budget.
Can we bill Madison County for that?
So
Maybe?
we can try. We can also, we were actually looking into trying to see if the grant would fund the mileage. Because basically what happened is in February, we started the Madison County Drug Court. It's always been the Washington-Madison County Drug Court. And Madison County participants had to drive all the way to Fayetteville 3 to 5 times a week, usually, for groups, drug testing, probation office. And so because of this grant that we got, which y'all have helped us with, we were able to start the Madison County Drug Court, which has somewhere between 20 and 30 participants in it now, which, and I know that doesn't affect Washington County's numbers, but those were individuals who would get sent to prison because they'd get placed on probation and then they continue to test positive and then they just get revoked and sent to prison. And there was just no way. Our numbers for Madison County, we always had max. I could count them on one hand, how many people could actually transport back and forth from Madison County to our program here.
Well,
And so
I don't fault it. I just think Madison County ought to pay for their own mileage.
I understand. So
I mean,
we will-
I think going to them is much better and probably increases the participation in the program, but they got to pay for it themselves. So
And-
anyway,
And I can look into that, but like I said, I think we're going forward, going to look at least right now, having the grant pay for it, and then I can talk to Madison County and see if that's some expense that they might be able to cover.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the line item transfers in 4.1.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay. All right, I believe we're finished with you.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you very much. Okay, and Judge Zimmerman, we're ready for you.
I was at a juvenile judges annual conference last week, so I was not able to be here. And so I just wanted to update the Quorum Court Finance Committee about some of the things going on in juvenile court. As many of you are aware, and some of you maybe have visited our evening reporting center on Emma Street, we call it the Station, and it's partnering with the Teen Action Support Center, the robotics team, and also the Jones Trust. And we, the Evening Reporting Center, tasked the robotics team and the Jones Trust, and our umbrella is the Station. We have been named a merit finalist for the 2018 Mutual of America Community Partnership Award for the nation. And they're going to be announcing it in January. There'll be some sort of award ceremony, but that's a pretty exciting thing. And we couldn't have done it without the Quorum Court backing our Evening Reporting Center and approving 2 full-time probation officers who are on Emma Street and our full-time counselor. So we've only been in existence, Ms. Frisbee, how many years? 2? A year and a half, and we've won this nationwide award. So that's something that I wanted to let you all know. Also, Miss Norma Oriana Frisbee here, who's our juvenile courts director. She won the Jimmy Joyce Award for Best Juvenile Officer of the Year for the whole state of Arkansas. So that is very exciting. So also I wanted you to be aware that I won an award through Children's House for the Endeavor Award. Several of us in the community have won that award, and so we're really working hard to strive to do the children and families of Washington County the best we can do. And so I just wanted to update you with that and tell you thank you for what all you do. And I'm still going to be coming back to you and asking about doing a lobby expansion for our 13 by 30 foot lobby that had over 18,300 people come through the front door Monday through Friday. So I'm still going to be coming back, but I appreciate all you do. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and we're very proud. Thank you for updating us. So the next thing on our list is budget controls. And I believe that the sheriff wanted to speak to part of the budget controls. This is where the P card comes in.
I would, Mr. Ussery, but I would yield the floor to Major Hoyt, who has expressed some dire concerns about the proposed change as it pertains to the sheriff's office.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I missed part of the meeting last week. What was that last meeting, Thursday night? Or I left for a little while and came back and found out that you'd been talking about P cards. And so I noticed in the budget controls that that has been removed for the 2019 budget. It just says all purchases will be made with purchase orders. So I don't know what the discussion was, what you were told, and I believe auditors were invoked and said it was a good thing that we get rid of P cards. I hadn't had any discussions with anybody with the county judge's office, so I don't know all of their justifications that they had and what they told you, so I have to plead ignorance to that. But I will just tell you that doing that just like that is a bad thing. I know it sounds good on paper, like, oh, we're getting rid of P cards, so we've eliminated the any problems there might be of misspending. But I'm telling you, we use P cards every day at the sheriff's office. Every one of our transport officers that goes on a transport and goes down to the prison or goes out of state has to spend the night in a hotel or buy food for the prisoner. They use those P cards all the time. We don't want to get into the shape where we're giving people cash money or telling these officers, oh, well, you just pay for that out of your own pocket and we'll reimburse you when you get back. That's a bad plan. The other thing is, though, we make a lot of purchases. I'm sure you do too at home. You probably use Amazon and maybe eBay. We do the same thing, looking for the best prices for items, whether it's a headset or wires. A lot of the vendors we deal with won't even take purchase orders. They're going, no, you got the money, you got a credit card, you give it to us, and we'll send you the items you want. I just got, on my way down here, I got a text from our fiscal officer that does all of our accounts payable, and I had just told them about this, and they were going, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. Right now, they use the P card to buy our items from Office Depot, because we can go through the Office Depot site and use the public's prices many times cheaper than we can use the county's pricing that has been set up, because it just works that way, and we use the P card all the time for that. So any of our travel, we charge schools, like registration. There's a school coming up that somebody's going to go to, and you need to get your name in the hopper at this school, and they want a credit card so that you can charge that school. They say, I don't take purchase orders. So I'm not saying it's that way. I mean, there's tons of vendors that do take purchase orders, but this would really cripple the sheriff's office for one. So I don't know what came up, or what auditors said or something. I don't know if there was a particular problem. I do understand why people would say, oh my, you have a bunch of credit cards out there and this could cause problems. But that's what oversight is for. That's what procedures are for. And I haven't, other than, I know there was an incident earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, that was in the newspaper about somebody else in here in county government that did some things, and maybe that's what drove this. But I also understand there's criminal charges against that person. So I really would hope you would talk about this a little bit more before you just say no to purchase cards, P cards. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming down and for talking to us. And Joel Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this was brought up as a way to avoid some issues. I think maybe Chief of Staff brought this up. I just wondered if the Chief of Staff or the Comptroller could tell us, is that something we could do with a different policy and leave P cards in this budget control?
So, anyway, any other questions for me, and I'll go back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe you could just help us understand what the issue was, and there may be a more efficient way to address it than a carte blanche P card removal.
I do not view it as a removal of what you call a P card, what I call my credit card, which is in my pocket. The fact of untraceability, the way the system was being run, we had certain instances which amounted to over hundreds of thousands of dollars, and no purchase order, no traceability, purchases by a P card or a credit card. So the auditors have indicated that we must have a traceable system. Ordinarily, when I've had a credit card for the companies I've worked for, and probably the companies that all of us work for, if you went on an expenditure trip, you had to fill out a report on how you paid for it. It's tracing how the purchase is made. You don't eliminate the credit cards. We're not saying that's a necessity. It's just confirming that the purchase is made is legitimate. Now, how we do that, our comptroller will work with us on each department, and we do have controls on gasoline and credit cards for those, and that's not what we're intended to look at. It's buying capital things or things for personal use that are not approved. Numerous times that I've been in business and I come in and I have my purchases that I bought, and they say, well, this is not approved. You'll have to pay for that yourself. It's accountability. We don't gather all the P cards up, but we must have each division being accountable and traceable that will muster audit.
Is there a different place in our policies where we could address this more on an internal basis rather than in our broad budget controls? And I don't know if that's maybe a question better suited for the comptroller or not, but
I believe so, and
it sounds like we're trying to do two different things here.
Right, because the way the budget controls said that you can just buy with a purchase order or a P card. Well, the P cards come in, and I've looked at everybody's for the last, since we had our incident, but they're already paid after we see them. The banks, they're going to get their money, so we have to go back to the people. So it's a closer supervision thing that we need to do. We're not advocating taking the cards away. We're advocating control the purchases of them.
I'll say this and then I'll conclude my remarks, but it looks to me like with the budget control, we're just trying to restrict that all purchases originally had to either be made with a paper purchase order or had to be made with a P card Those are the only two venues. So what I'm hearing, and would love to hear the comments of my colleagues, but what I'm hearing is that this is another step down the process where maybe individual employee purchases with a P card need to be governed under another internal policy, either at the
That's
sheriff's
right.
department or the judge's department or whatever.
Each department needs to control them, and the department head needs to have control of, and not have unrestricted use.
But I think that if I'm looking at the budget controls right, I think those are the only two ways we want things to be purchased for the county. And then the oversight of those would be a different step. So I would move that we re-include the P cards back to line item 4 for budget controls.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on this? My suggestion, and I'm probably just showing my ignorance here, is to have approved purchases. And they can be approved afterwards.
Sure.
But approved purchases with the P card, and that may be a way to get around this. So if something shows up, just like where I work, you go on a trip, you take a picture. You use the company credit card, you take a picture of that and you send in with your expenses, and it has to be approved. If it's not approved, then they charge you back for it.
That's exactly correct.
And so maybe if we put the word approved in there.
I would accept that.
Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you.
I would like to ask if this is acceptable to
Major Hoyt?
Major
Yes.
Hoyt. Would that process be a good solution for your department?
We'll repeat what you think you're wanting to do. By the way, we have a procedure. The county has already adopted procedures on how P cards are to be used. So I don't know, maybe not everybody is using that procedure. When we go on trips, we have a travel policy. The county has a travel policy where you have to fill out a sheet and put all those expenses on it, even if you used a P card. So that's already being done. Now, we have another layer, and I'm not suggesting anybody else have to do this, but we instituted it 14 years ago at the sheriff's office. Anybody that's going to make a purchase of $100 or more at that time, whether it's a P card or even if they want a purchase order, they have to fill out paperwork, and it has to be signed by a captain in advance of that purchase, a captain or above, and there's only 4 of those captains, and then 2 majors and the chief and the sheriff. So it's really pulled down to a handful of people that can approve these purchases in advance, and that's how, knock on wood, that's how we believe we have avoided any improper purchasing, because we know about it before they go and do it. Now, they do have the liberty, to spend up to $100, like if they're out and they've got to, on a weekend or something, and they've got to get a part for a vehicle or something, they can do that, but they have to follow up with that form, and then it still has to get signed. And everything for reimbursement, every month, every single person in this county that has a P card receives a statement, just like you receive a statement at home for your credit card. You must have all of the receipts for every single purchase on that, and that has to be attached to it. It is sent up to the comptroller's office. They scan all of those items in there. That's available at any time. And like every once in a while, one of our deputies might go on a trip and maybe they tipped too much because they just, I don't know, maybe their math wasn't correct. And our person down there at our place and the people up here catch that. And there has been several times, you can ask the county collector, our treasurer, there's been several times we've had to send deputies up and dig out $1.38 or, and says, no, that's coming out of your pocket, bud. You didn't know how to figure your tip. So, I think we're doing a stellar job. I don't like the idea that we have so many P cards, but it's the nature of the beast. It's the way we have to conduct business nowadays.
So then my follow-up question is, with the amended language to the budget controls, all purchases must be made with a purchase order and/or P card with approval. Is okay? Is that language okay?
Well, whose approval?
Well, the department's approval.
Okay, well, with department head's approval, okay, well, that's fine.
Is that
I just don't
fine?
know whose approval it is. When you say, in general, can only be made with approval, well,
Do you
whose
wanna-
approval are we talking about?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add, ask for a friendly amendment to department heads or
I think department head's approval
approval
would meet that.
as a friendly amendment to just blanket approval.
I think
Yes,
we're
Mr.
making this a bit more complicated than it needs to be. We're
I'd like
basically
it s-
putting this back the way it was before we changed this the other night, and you guys have functioned under this rule for however many years. So obviously, we're not going to do any unapproved purchases. Those can be made with cash and your own personal credit cards, I guess. But we're just saying all approved purchases, which is going to catch everything. I think if we restrict it down to department heads and do all this stuff, we're going to make your life miserable, our life miserable, if we change that up. We're just really trying to restore it the way it was before we made our move a
I
couple of
agree
nights
with
ago.
that. I think it, and then if there's any other internal procedures that need to be done from the county judge's office and the comptroller's office, they can funnel that down to the individual departments. Thank you.
Okay, we have, it's been properly approved, the motion's been made and properly approved, all in favor of, okay. All right, Ms. Patty, do you have that?
Approved purchases. With a purchase order for e-cards.
Okay, we'll go on to the next thing, and it's the sheriff's department. I believe the sheriff has some things he wants to show us. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, sir?
Just for legalities, maybe you better ask if anybody opposed.
Was anybody opposed? Yeah, we had already approved all of them, so this was just amending it to move forward to the quorum court. So Sheriff Helder, are you ready?
Just from looking out there at the budget controls, the one thing you did change was the elected officials deal. I don't know if that was what you voted on in that vote or not. Okay. Jack, would you mind coming up? What I wanted to do before we start, and I'm assuming, Bill, what I'm talking about initially is the step plan again, or any?
Yes, sir.
I guess we'll see how this flows again tonight, but, so hot off the press, then, we are, due to FOI requests, we're releasing information, dash cam video and things of that nature on Sunday's incident where Corporal Thompson for the sheriff's office was making a routine traffic stop up around Tawnytown, and I think most of y'all have seen the news coverage of this. I did notify Chairman of the Law Enforcement Committee, gave him kind of an update of what was going on. But I thought in light of our discussions and in light of that this is going to hit the media, I wanted you all to have access to this tonight. So this will be the dash cam video from Deputy Corporal Thompson's vehicle on Sunday, early afternoon, making what we would determine to be a routine traffic stop. And I think there may be some film from a passerby. But go ahead, Jack.
787 Tom Point X-ray, light green, Saturn passenger car.
Sometimes it works.
Arkansas 787 Tom Point X-ray, light green, driver's seat.
There we go. Is that coming through? Okay.
Light green, Saturn passenger car.
Can you hear?
like you may be trying to hide something underneath the driver's seat.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Jesus! Shots fired, County.
And what you're going to see here in just a minute is, so right now the guy's got cover in his car. Our guy fortunately was able to grab cover. But normally these are, what happens is that it's a hit and miss. The guy's going to jump in his car and go. What you're going to see is this gentleman is very aggressive. He's got his mind made up that he's going to kill this deputy. That's what you're going to see coming forward.
Steel Road, Springdale.
Okay, what's going on there?
I've got a sheriff, Washington County Sheriff in a gunfight out here with somebody. He needs backup.
Shots fired, kid! County, I need units now! County, he's fleeing in a vehicle at eastbound on Steel.
He had a passenger in the car.
Except for I got a white female just got out. She's walking southbound off of Steel. You good?
I'm good. You good?
I'm good.
We may need a little line item transfer to help us with repairing that car. I don't think there's one window that was undamaged. And it's a 2-week-old vehicle. It's just been in service 2 weeks. But it was a great barrier. Thank you, Lord. Okay, thank you. So, here again, I've been having these conversations for quite some time, and then this happens right in the middle of our conversations to where we're trying to compare what these deputies are doing to what everybody else's job includes. I don't want it to mean anybody else's job within this county. I've told you before, I want all of our employees countywide to be compensated. What I'm trying to do is make sure everybody understands that this group of people, 82, I think it is, their jobs are so different than everybody else's. We're talking apples and oranges. And I know that you love the road department, and I do too. I love those guys. But we can't lump this group in with all other county employees. It's time for that to stop. The world we live in has become much more aggressive, much more violent to law enforcement. I think you all agree with that. I've shown you this before, but this is hot off the press and brand new. Why Corporal Thompson was not killed, only God knows. Because this guy had the jump on him, he just missed. And then Corporal Thompson is one of our guys that cross-trains with Fayetteville on ERT, SWAT, if you will. Great shape. He was able to maneuver, and as he was staggering back to that other car, did you notice that? He was zigzagging and doing all the things right because he had run out of cover, and this guy was so aggressive that it was fixing to get worse. So, guys, I wanted to show you that before it hits the media. You are my quorum court, and I did notify Joel, as I thought I should do. Thank you for your indulging me with that, just for that little bit of information. Now, Bill, how do you want me to proceed? What is it that you're wanting me to cover tonight, based on requests?
I'd just like to open it up for discussion to make sure we're all clear on kind of what's going on here. Are there any questions on this at all? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Masson.
I don't understand what the current proposal is. Is the proposal to adopt the step plan in full, or to do it at some percentage that I'm not really sure I understand what it is? Because I think the sheriff has maybe been given direction from someone in the county judge's office, or maybe our chairman, about what, so I don't know what's before us.
Okay, it's easy to clarify. I talked to him and I said, is there any middle ground here? Is there any way we can spread this out? And we talked about it at length, and he reviewed it, and he said, no, this is what it's going to take. That we need to do this, we need to do it. And so this is exactly what we're discussing right here, the piece of paper in front of us.
And that's,
Okay, and you can see that the total cost on that is $954,045.
and that's this?
Yes. That's this sheet of paper right here.
But Sheriff, what is the change to the budget? Because I know you all have done some work on your side, so that the net effect is not 900,000, it's
Well,
something less.
that's the discussion. Whenever I was basically asked to compromise in order to not affect compensation raises for the rest of the county, to submit what I did the other night. And that included a reduction of 52% in our capital request on the enforcement side, which we're probably going to need one of those cars back, looks like. And then we reduced some on the detention center to cover those raises. So it really depends where we're at on this thing. I mean, if we've determined we have funding, I've got the need for the capital. It wasn't like I've fluffed my budget that I don't need it. But I was basically asked to consider finding reductions to help with compensation for the rest of the county, which, look, guys, I'm not going to be the bad guy in this where everybody else doesn't get a raise. Everybody deserves a raise in this county that works here. What I'm trying to do is clearly separate and identify this group of people that have to be separated. Alicia, I think that maybe you had even talked to us at the sheriff's office that night about looking at vehicles and whatnot. Obviously, we can limp around for a year if we need to. It just puts us further behind on replacement costs. So in answer to your question, do I want to give up my capital? I do not. If that's a requirement of the court, I will.
Well, I would move that we adopt the step pay plan for the sheriff's office, and then if we can only fund it at a certain percentage, the way the final budget comes out, then we work that out in the budget. But I think the sheriff has justified to us that implementing this step plan is a necessity for the sheriff's office and for effective law enforcement in Washington County.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. What other discussion do we have? Butch?
I want to tell you, Sheriff, that I totally agree with you on the good part of this. It's something that's got to be done. We lose good people for obvious reasons. They've been trained. They go elsewhere for safer, better pay. I think it needs to be done in full, I do have a concern. If we're talking about tentatively approving the whole thing that you're asking for, I'm in agreement with that. But I will not promise you that I'll vote to go ahead and do this until I find out some way in the world we do something about the revenue stream to pay for it. I'm just, it's not fiscally responsible to tell you that, yes, we're gonna do this, and then we don't do anything to, find the funds to pay for it. And I'd rather, leave the part about deserving out of it. Deserving doesn't have anything to do with it. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. Of course they deserve it, but we don't, I don't think we give out pay raises because somebody deserves it. We do it because it's a necessity and they've earned it. And it is a necessity and they have earned it. We just got to come up with the money to do it. And that does, and I don't want to intend to make you out the bad guy. I'll be the bad guy. I'll not help this court rob road maintenance to pay for it. There's a way we can stand up and do our job like we're supposed to appropriate the money for this. And that is revenues that the state legislature has provided for us to pay for things. We got some millages that they have a limit on them. There's a cap, but those are put there in place for us to have something to tweak with as far as revenue stream goes. When it's necessary, we can increase it up to 5. When it's possible, we can also go back and cut it 1/10 of a mil at a time or something like that. Whatever we see that we can afford to do in order to give the people a tax break. We've been giving people a tax break on that property tax. Right now, we have a need. We have a need. We have a need in your department. We have a need in the road department to assist the private enterprise system, the economy in Washington County, by keeping our infrastructure, our roads in a condition that will not affect the private sector, the private businesses, when there's a economic downturn, a spiral down, if you will, from people in the county having extra expenses for car maintenance and tire repairs and that sort of thing. Doing what you're doing, you might keep a few cars from being shot up. We're going to have to keep roads repaired so we can keep people from unnecessarily having to buy tires more often than they need to, shocks, that sort of thing. When they don't have to do that, maybe they can afford to go out and eat a little more often. First thing it's going to affect when we start letting the roads fall apart is the restaurateurs. I don't want to ramble on forever. I just want you to know I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm there to help you with it whenever we get enough people here that see fit to stand up and do our part. If maybe it's just me, but I'll just be the bad guy. It's not you. What you've come in here and showed us, we know we have to do.
I want you to be the good guy. I want y'all to find a solution. And here's the deal. I love the road department. We cook Christmas dinner. We love what they do. We come out on ice storms together. We appreciate each other's job. But what I'm trying to do, I want people to understand, I'm not asking you to take money from the road. That never came out of my mouth. But every time I speak about the need that I have for these guys, there's a conversation that keeps comparing them to what we're doing and how, their need. Look, guys, I wish we could keep this very specific about the sheriff's office enforcement division. And then if Carl or the judge want to come up and talk about the road department and what their needs are, then do that. But what I'd really like for us to do is focus on what I'm talking about. This is a 2.5 year conversation that is culminating at the end of this year. Why do we keep going back and talking about the road department when I'm up here talking to you about law enforcement and what the needs are?
Now, I want to respond to that. It's not your fault. It's this court's fault. It's the fault of this court for not doing their duty, what they've got to do to provide the services for the people of this county. Thank you.
Robert Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Sheriff, appreciate you and all that you've said. I take great pride in voting the way my constituents want me to vote. Sometimes I have my mind set up on something, and I talk to them, and they'll have their mind set up on something different. And I'll say that the three of us all join together on this. My constituents want this, I want this, and I know you want this. I'll use the example of a Washington County employee that talked to me. They flagged me down in the parking lot and wanted to talk politics. And they said, well, what are you doing, giving the sheriff just a huge, all the deputies a huge raise? And I said, well, I'll just use this for an example. I said, their job's a little different. They get shot at, and this hadn't occurred. And she said, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that. She's a Washington County employee. She said, oh, I've got a family member, and he's been shot at twice. And said, that does make a difference. That does make a difference. And so that's coming from a Washington County employee, a constituent, and someone who had someone shot at, what that was a family member. I think one thing that I always see us get caught up with, I'm not a great mathematician, but we always get caught up with percentages. When you put a percentage over here and it says 14.2%, but you're going from 38,000 to 44,000, you got to not look at the percentage, you got to look at what they're making. So the man that setting in or pulls someone over to give them a ticket was making 38,000, and now he'd be making 44,000. And for what people are paid in Northwest Arkansas for the different occupations that they have, I agree. We should have taken care of this a couple of years ago. They should have been making the 44 2 years ago, not now. And so I'll be crossing over and voting for this. I don't know about crossing over. I'll just be doing the thing that I think is correct, and I think it's correct to vote for it. I also think that I could use the same argument and the same analogy on people that are working in the other departments, not any particular department, but any department. People need to make a decent wage, and we need to pay them a decent wage, and that's been our responsibility, and shame on us for not taking care of it better. So that's the way I feel. Yeah, that's a yes vote. Thank you.
Harvey Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sheriff, I guess the primary question I've got, we know that there was quite a large infusion into the jail fund from the general fund last year or this year. And is this, we got 813,000 and 60,000 on this line here. Is that in addition to what we were infusing this year?
Where are you at, Harvey?
I'm on this budget sheet.
I don't have it.
We're going to go over the budget sheet in just a few moments, so we don't need to get ahead of ourselves if it's all right,
Okay.
Harvey. We'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes.
Okay, all right, okay.
And we don't want to get him blindsided, and we're really
Okay.
talking law enforcement at the moment. And
All right, that's my primary question.
Hey, Bill, before you move on, just to cover a couple other things along these lines. We talk about, I think, I don't remember who said what now about losing people, but I just lost an 18-year employee to another department to get a raise. And Corporal Thompson is a 10-year employee making that wage. And I've got just an entire list of people that are grade 18s that they just don't compare. And that's just, I know I'm just expounding on my argument and trying to make sure that you all see a clear and clear picture of what I'm trying to present, is that it's just a totally different job description. Nights, holidays, weekends, shot at, fought, all that stuff. And please don't think I'm up here whining about it. I've done it for, 40 years now. We don't do it for the money. We do it because we feel like we're serving our community. But it's the right thing to do, and it will definitely help our organization retain quality people and show them that level of appreciation. I would still go back and argue they do deserve it, but I think it goes to what Butch is saying, it's the right thing to do. Just a point of interest, in 2018, we hired 71, we lost 51. That's overall. And the sheriff's office, we have 5 open positions. Bill, I think you asked for this information, is what I'm sharing. We have 5 open positions in dispatch. We have 5 open positions in patrol. That's including the one that just left this weekend. And then 2 open positions in detention, which is the best news I've had in detention side forever. So patrol has had at least 4 positions open in all of 2018. Just trying to find the right people, or people are leaving and we can't backfill fast enough. Dispatch has had at least 3 open, all 2018.
If you don't mind, I'd like to ask just a couple of other questions. And that is, how many new people did you train last year?
Well,
Do you have that information?
if we hired 71, that's how many we've trained. And we trained 51 that they're no longer with us, so.
I guess, and the point that I'm trying to make here is that if we pay them a fair wage, we don't have to be the training grounds for all the other ones. And then the second thing is that we're able to attract people to fill those positions if we're at the level we should be. I mean, that's kind of an assumption, but I would think that's probably where we'd be going with this.
If we're hiring from the same pool, which we are in Northwest Arkansas, the same pool of applicants, Greg Tabor and Mike Reynolds are sitting back here from Fayetteville, and Mike Peters is in Springdale, Hayes Minor's in Rogers. Don't kid yourself, we're drawing from the same people. But if they can go to Fayetteville PD or Rogers for $5,000, $6,000 more to start, and they get to do the same job, basically, where are they gonna go? Where are they going? Where have they gone? That's one of the big dilemmas on the front end. That's not the retention end, that's the hiring end.
Okay, thank you. Ann Harbison?
Well, I definitely support the sheriff's department, and we know that the kind of thing that we just viewed can happen at any time with any law enforcement officer. You said that you didn't want to give up any capital, and I understand that, because that just kicks the can down the road, and you have more cars and more things to buy next year. If we were to transfer $2 million from the road department, that's still kicking the can down the road, because that money will be needed for other things also. I don't see any other way but to have a new stream of revenue. We, in the last 7 years, and this figure came from Bobby Hill, we donated to the property owners of Washington County $10.5 million. Those are real dollars. That's how much money has been taken out of our budget. And rightly so. We probably could have used half of that. But I will be looking at a new stream of revenue to finance your program. Now, if that's voted down, I don't know what we're going to do. But
I think everyone on this court feels and sees the need for the money that you have asked for. And I, for one, probably depend on you more than any, maybe Butch, some of these people that live out in the rural areas depend on your services more than anyone else on this court. So, I definitely want to support you, but it's going to have to be with a new stream of revenue. Thank you.
Lisa Ecke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to just put an end to the discussion of the roads versus the sheriff's department versus the comptroller's department or the assessor's office or the treasurer's office. The way I see it, we're all Washington County, we're all one big family, and we all support each other. And it is up to us individual JPs on this court not to bring up the possibility or the suggestion of how much money is in the roads department compared to other departments, and that perhaps we need to have a piece of that pie instead. That's where it all comes from. And if we could stop saying those things and putting out that kind of dissent among each other, we wouldn't have this discussion. And I believe that there'd be a lot more unity among the departments without any kind of suspicion that you're going to take $2.5 million from my budget, which we're not. We're not. But I agree with Ann that a decision made by previous courts, they didn't have the vision of what that decision and how that decision would impact Washington County. So therefore, I know that I want to look at the vision ahead and the decisions we make, how are they going to impact our future, your future, their future. This still weighs on my mind that one of your, I don't know if he was a deputy, could not adopt a child because he was considered at poverty level and they were denied adoption. That still just is in my heart quite a bit. And I said, that's a travesty. And when I was looking at some of the pay grades of your department, and I saw that some clerical workers made more than what your men were making, and they were getting shot at, we entered into this discussion of we need to either regrade, which we've done, and I'm glad we did. But I support you, and we're going to find ways. We're going to find ways to support this county because I know everybody out there wants a safe community, and that's why they're moving here. And that's one thing that you and your men are providing is a safe community. So I support you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Okay, what I would like to do is, before we vote on this, I'd like to go through the budget discussion because I've got some things there that y'all have in front of you that I think will help to clarify. Okay, all right, well, let's vote on that motion then. Can you repeat the motion? I apologize, I was so focused on where we're going.
It was my motion to approve the step plan. We all, everybody on this court needs to realize one thing, and that is that if the millage does not pass, there will be no way to fund this. It will not be possible to fund it. And I'm reluctant to vote on something that there's no funding for, no funding stream for. I specifically said that the motion would be to include it as part of the budget package, and we could sort out the finances eventually with funding it at a certain percentage or not. It's on the agenda before we're finalizing the budget. I didn't make up the agenda this way. It's before the ordinance on the daily fees and before the budget discussion. That's where it's presented. The sheriff has been here how many times to present this step plan? He is entitled to a vote on it.
Yes, ma'am, and we'll vote tonight on it, but But in order for us to get the clear picture, we've got to look at it's our responsibility to look at the entire budget. And the only way we can do that is that this is part of that budget, a big part of that budget. And so if we want to vote for it now, we need to understand that what we're trying to do is we need to make sure we've got a funding source before we do that. We've been kicking this can down the road way too long in too many areas. And so we'll go ahead and vote on it because the motion's on the floor and it's been seconded. But I strongly suggest that we wait.
Well, we have to start making some progress with the budget. We've made no
Yes,
progress.
ma'am.
We haven't passed any part of it. This is finally trying to get us toward that direction. It's November 13th.
I do not see how waiting 30 minutes is going to make a difference. I apologize, but I just don't. All right? Let's go ahead and finish our discussion on this.
I just need a point of clarification, so I'm unclear as to if we're doing a partial, if the motion on the floor is for a partial step plan or the full step plan, or kind of what we have on the table.
All right, go ahead, and please.
It's to adopt the step plan as presented, and then we can find out we all know that when we pass things as part of the budget, the ultimate budget vote of the ultimate ordinance is what is passed. And it's sort of tentative until that vote comes. So we adopt it as part of the budget package, and then decide in the final budget equation at what level we fund it. If we fund it at 50% or 100%, but so it's to pass it as part of the budget package, and then we find out in the final equation of the budget at what level we fund the program.
So,
It's the best I can say.
and is that, Sheriff, I'll refer this to you, is this number that you have on this sheet we have showing $813,000 for the step plan and then an additional $60,000 for the jail portion of the step plan? Is that a full step plan funding? Is that a partial step plan funding? I just want to make sure I understand where we're at.
That's the full plan.
Is that this, what you handed me? Oh, it's on the other.
I'm going to move that we table this until we go through this budget.
Well, we have a motion on the floor we need to vote
Well,
on.
yeah, but I'm asking that we table it, and a table is above a motion.
Right. I was staring at the sign, but this is, where are we talking about? What they're talking about?
Okay, there's a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any other discussion? Butch Bond.
Is this a motion to approve the step plan or tentatively approve it when the budget is approved? That's a question.
Is it tentative or is it, you're the one who made the motion, so I would appreciate you answering.
Maybe add tentative to the language.
Well, it's the way we always approve the budget. We approve
Let's
some.
table it until the end of the
Okay,
meeting.
I think I have the floor. The motion is to make it part of the budget package, which will not be approved until it's an ordinance before the full quorum court. Furthermore, this committee has passed on no budget to the full quorum court for approval. So this is one step, then this committee will approve the final budget, and then the quorum court will approve it. So it's tentative 2 steps removed, but I do not want my motion to say it's a tentative approval, because I want us to approve the step plan as presented.
We'll just vote it down.
Okay, all right. And so if there's no further discussion, Patty, will you do a roll call, please, on this?
That supersedes it.
Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Alicia Devons.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
No.
Colleen Briny.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Rich Pond.
Abstain.
Fred Roush.
Yes.
Okay, and so it passes. All right, so we're finished with you at the moment, Sheriff. Thank you very much.
If I
Thank you.
could, just to wrap up on the incident, before I leave, I did notice that Mike and Greg were here. I want to brag on their department, Springdale's department, state police, and there were probably others that I'm unaware of. but they all joined in this pursuit, and ultimately, the guy was apprehended in Springdale, but he shot at Fayetteville's officers on the roll now during the pursuit. He shot at Fayetteville's officers, Springdale, and the state police. It's a bad guy. 4 counts of attempted capital murder, and there is a ICE immigration hold on him as we speak.
I believe that there was one more question.
I know that you had said that you weren't aware whether any bystanders were injured, but I assume that no one was hurt for all the shooting?
Right, isn't that unbelievable? You know, it's a real miracle. For those of you that really believe, I believe that God intervened in this one to keep everybody safe, but in particular, Corporal Thompson. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. And the next thing that we have is an ordinance to establish a daily fee charged municipalities for housing prisoners in the county jail. And it's on here for discussion. I don't think we're quite ready. But this is one of those things that we've, like a lot of things that we do, we've been kicking this can down the road for quite some time. And we need to kind of get some things clarified on this and make sure we know where we're going. And is there? Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay. It's on the agenda. The ordinance is in the packet on our computer. I'm not quite sure what I mean by it's on here only for discussion.
That what I would like to do is I'd like to discuss this before there's some more details on this that we need to work out.
We
But
do
this is,
usually discuss ordinances before we vote on them.
yes,
right?
ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And that's exactly what we're going to do.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
If the intention is, which I believe it is from reading the ordinance, that it would be effective January 1, then I think this committee would have to act on it tonight. Because otherwise, there's no way for it to become effective by January 1st. So I took it to mean we were going to vote on this tonight, and if it passed, it would be on the quorum court Thursday, because otherwise it won't have time to become ordinance by January 1. So,
We will see where the discussion goes tonight. So, Harvey Bowman, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I guess I'm probably one of the guilty ones that mentioned this thing to begin with. And I think last time we talked about it, I suggested we go ahead and impose this charge to the cities, but that we implement it so that it does not start collecting fees from them until January 1 of 2020. So that's my proposal on the situation, and I hope you'll consider this, adopt it, and make it applicable January 1, 2020.
Okay, just a moment. Okay, there was no second?
You didn't make a motion.
Okay, all right, that's a motion. Is there? The motion is to change the date to 2020. I'm sorry, 2019. Right. He wants to move it out 1 year. Okay, all right, Eva Masson?
I actually agree with J.P. Bowman that I certainly think there should be some delay. The reason I didn't second it is because I think there needs to be greater discussion about the nature of the fee. I don't know that this court has done any assessment of what this will do to the various cities. I'm also concerned, my understanding was that the judge's office had spoken with all the mayors, was what I thought we had been told, but I found myself being the bearer of bad news to the mayor of Fayetteville, that he had not heard about this. And so I'm concerned that our mayors may not be aware of this. I also took it upon myself to notify someone in the University of Arkansas administration as to the impact the fee will have on them, and I just heard back today that they had passed it along. So I think there's a lack of notice, so I agree that pushing this out is absolutely necessary, but I also think that we need to talk about what this impact will be on our various cities, and we need to know that, because taking, like the city of Fayetteville, for instance, taking them from a daily or a booking fee for misdemeanors to a daily fee for even their felony holds for the first potentially 30 days is a dramatic change, dramatic. And realizing that the city of Fayetteville citizens already fund the jail through the quarter-cent sales tax, which is a countywide tax. So every city's citizens are already paying to fund the jail. I realize that that sales tax is not covering the jail operations, but I think we're sort of talking about double taxing by imposing this fee in addition to the sales tax. And I think we need to figure out if there's a more moderate approach, because I think going from the daily fee to this $62 a day for everybody is too fast, I think. So I think we not only need to consider delaying it, but I think we need to look at maybe a more moderate fee, taking into account that the fact that the citizens of the cities already pay to fund the jail by virtue of the quarter-cent sales tax. But until I can see those numbers, still that we can figure out exactly what the $62 a day would mean for the city of Fayetteville, the city of Springdale, the city of Farmington, all of them, I think we need to try to ease this in a bit, because my understanding is that it could affect the city of Fayetteville over $2 million a year. That's dramatic. That's dramatic. That's going from $200,000 to in excess of $2 million. For one, without any warning is not okay. And number two, I think that dramatic of a shift is too much. So I think this certainly merits some discussion.
Were there some people there that wanted to speak on this from the cities? Okay, there's nobody here. Okay. All right, Joel Maxwell, and then I'll go over here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things. I think it is, this is a challenge because you don't want to spring something on the cities, and I agree with J.P. Bowman and J.P. Madison that doing it in an abrupt way, I think, is difficult. I spoke to some of the police chiefs this week regarding this, and I was trying to get, I also had the same question that J.P. Madison had, are we double taxing them? Because I knew we charge a quarter-cent sales tax now that everybody in the county, whether you live inside of Fayetteville, Springdale, wherever, you pay that. We use that for our jail maintenance and operation, but as best I can tell, Benton County also charges a quarter-cent sales tax, and just this year have opted to raise their fees from 50. I think they initially wanted to go from 50 to 55, and if I understand it correctly, I could be corrected. They went from 50 up to 60 all at once. So I think maybe something, if we look to do this, I think something that might be, well, let me back up and say this. I don't want to surprise the cities either, but we're in the county. We get surprised every time somebody gets arrested, and then every time there's an $800,000 or $1 million. I'm looking at our current budget. We're going to bring in $15 million, and we're budgeting $16 million in the coming year to handle jail and operations. So we know we're going to be surprised, if you will, for $1 million possibly in the coming year. So I get that none of us like the surprises, and I don't want to be unfair to the cities either. So I think maybe my thoughts would be, if this is something that we feel like is appropriate to share these costs with the people who are bringing these prisoners to us, then I think it might be beneficial to us, or to them and to us, to maybe do a partial, if we decide to do something this year, do a partial fee, maybe a half fee. I don't know what the right number is. I'd certainly love to hear discussion on that. Do a half fee this year with the notice that next year that it would be incrementally moving up to more what our costs are. We're not trying to make money on this, but we're trying not to lose as much money as we do. The county foots the bill for everybody that gets arrested to the tune of about an extra $1 million every year. So just trying to make sure that we don't go backwards, because somebody's got to pay for it. At the end of the day, it's got to come from someplace. So I think we would be wise to consider maybe a stepped-in fee if we decide to do this, and that way that'll help our burden in the coming year and help us with the surprises that we get, and then give everybody time to adjust for actually paying the actual cost that it cost us to house their prisoners for them on their behalf. So,
Thank you very much. That might be a good compromise. Harvey Bowman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, one thing I think that we got to pay attention to, Springdale does not ask us if they can close their jails. The reason they're closing their jails is to minimize costs of operation. Fayetteville, Arkansas does not have a jail for the same purpose. You know, we don't have a choice about accepting those things. But, we continue to receive all this extra money that it costs us to operate the jails when they're abdicating any responsibility for taking care of those people. So what we've got to do is go ahead and try to respond so that we cover our bases and realize that, yes, we're all paying taxes for jail and so forth, but we're going to have to take a defensive process, I guess you could say, or procedure, to try to mitigate some of the damages done by these people continuing to close jails. The same thing goes to the state. The state doesn't pay us what it costs us. And now they're talking about spending $39 million, I think the paper said, to build 500 beds down at the state organization or institution. And we're talking about trying to build 600 for 30 million, I'm sorry. So somehow we've got to go ahead and take care of this deficit that's coming out of our general funds to operate our jail. And the only thing I can see to do is let the people, sending the people to us, take care of a big piece of that charge. Thank you.
Ann Harbison?
We've come to a point that we have to go on and assess a daily fee. There's no way that we can continue to, pay and take care of Fayetteville. Things change, and we're, keeping more prisoners for a longer period of time. We've got pre-trial prisoners, and we're not getting anything for those. We're having to pay all of that. We need to keep the booking fee, and then we need a daily rate. And I think we need to go on and at least put it in effect by July 1. That gives them 6 months to get used to. I'm not sure, maybe we could make it a little bit more palatable if we reduce the $62 to $40 for this year. Go on and charge a $40 fee and keep the booking fee. I don't know. I just know that we're going bankrupt at the jail and that we are going to have to do something. Now, we do the new jail and ask for a half cent and then a quarter of a cent to take care of it. That may take care of it. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows whether it will take care of it or not. But I think for the short term that we need to go on and charge a fee this year. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Heard somebody say one time they're the first to admit their mistakes, but with their wife and kids, it's a close race. So nobody got me yet. So I'm gonna admit my own mistake. Some of what I was looking up, I think actually that was referring back to Washington County collecting the quarter-cent sales tax. So I think Benton County does not, if I understand it correctly now, does not collect a jail tax for operations. So I wanted, before I made that statement thinking what I was reading was correct, I want to correct that before we get too much farther down the discussion. And if that's the case, then I think probably a partial fee of the $62 would be, in my opinion, much more fair, so we're not double taxing them. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Ecke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to ask the sheriff, do you have, is there an ordinance that gave you permission to enter a contract with an interlocal agreement with the municipalities to however much you're charging? You have one with Fayetteville, don't you, for the misdemeanor booking fees, don't you? Or you did not have a contract?
We do have a contract, an annual contract with Fayetteville for booking fees.
Okay.
Which began when they closed their jail in 2005.
Do you have a contract with the other municipalities?
No.
Okay.
Just the federal government and Madison County.
In Madison County. I believe at the last jail and law enforcement, or it could have been the budget, I don't remember right now. Isn't that what you were asking for, if we would allow you to have an ordinance that allows you to engage in a contractual agreement with the other cities? Wasn't that pretty much what you were asking?
Well, I think that in order to do this, if you want me to enforce what Harvey has proposed, then you have to do it by ordinance. You create the law.
Sure.
I enforce the law. And I just wonder if I might throw this out, Lisa, is that when you're discussing the amounts and all that, we've got this potential jail construction thing looming in front of us. If you were able to parlay and use this to your advantage, to get that done, it's that however you draft your ordinance, that it would drop off once the additional quarter M&O is passed, then there would be no reason to be charging everybody, because it would go back to what Justice Madison was saying, that the cities are already paying for this through this tax. However, they're not paying what it takes to cover it now, but they will be if we get this other construction and ongoing maintenance and operation vote passed. Does that make sense?
Yes, but, in looking some of these billable board days numbers, that I'd like to thank Jay Cantrell for sending them to me. He gave me a breakdown of all the cities: Elkins, Elm Springs, Farmington, Fayetteville, Greenland, Johnson, Lincoln, Prairie Grove, Springdale, Gailtani Town, University of Arkansas, and West Fork. Comes to total county LEAs, 5,983 billable board days. Then you have the 2,419 also. But if it goes down, it says Fayetteville currently pays $62 per misdemeanor booking for roughly 4,500 bookings per year. That's a good chunk of money. And then I understand, he says it's difficult to break down other departments and whatnot. But when it comes down to it, on average, we book approximately 1,800 PCs arrests per year from the municipality agencies, which translates to about 13,000 BBDs. And if you look at $62 per BBDs, that's roughly 1.1 million that we would be getting from the municipalities, correct? Roughly. If you were to just do billable board days, that number would change from Fayetteville, and you'd probably get more from the misdemeanor bookings than you would billable board days, or does it all even out?
On misdemeanors? Or are you including felony
No,
arrests
this
in
is
there as
just
well?
billable board days.
With Fayetteville, the initial look into that we did was that they would almost be the same. In fact, Jay, unless something changed, they would, based on history, they would pay a little bit less if you did a per-day fee without a booking fee.
Right.
Just a little, but it's really pretty close. That's on misdemeanors.
So my question was, do you want us to have an ordinance draft for billable board days, or do you want just misdemeanors? Well, I mean, what?
If we're gonna,
If
if
you
we're
were
gonna
gonna
move
ask for
forward
it,
with this
what
and
do
you
you
want it to
want?
be meaningful, because, it's gonna cause us a lot of work. I mean, I'm basically gonna I'll have to have somebody solely responsible for all the bookkeeping to keep up with this, all right? It's complicated. But I think if we're gonna do this, it needs to be felony and misdemeanor. And I think it's, when they walk through the door, they get a charge, whether you want to make it a booking fee, and then the next day it becomes a board day fee, or if you just want to do it from day one, the same price. I know you're talking about one fee for booking and then a reduced fee for daily, however you want to do that. If we're going to do this, it needs to be the whole gamut.
Well, this is what I was asking previously, if you could give me a breakdown on exactly how much do you want to charge the municipalities for and for what? So that way we have one bookkeeping system. It's easy, keep it simple. And I don't know if when I got this, I assumed it was just the billable board days is what you want and not the misdemeanors. So before I look at even moving this on, I want a breakdown on what exactly do you want to charge?
Okay.
And to have that exactly, then we'll know where we can put what. But this right now, and us determining the percentages of, well, maybe this or maybe not, I mean, it doesn't matter what we think. I need to know what are the numbers?
Well, our numbers are $62 a day. That's the
Well,
going
billable board
rate.
days, is that what you want to go with and not
That's
misdemeanors?
what I'd go with, but I mean, if you're wanting a reduced, that's the discussion for you, but for me, bookkeeping wise,
That's what I'm asking.
a single amount across the board is
Billable
what I
board
need.
days is what we want, and forget the misdemeanors. Is
You
that
don't
what you're saying?
forget the
Because-
misdemeanors,
Don't forget the
because they have
misdemeanors.
billable board days too. They get commitments.
Okay,
So they may be in our jail for 10 days. Throw out what I just said about misdemeanor commits. We can't charge for those. But if they're there for 5 days,
okay.
then they pay the $62 for however many days they're in.
I guess I'm thinking about booking charges.
Well, you're either gonna, I think that, so that discussion is for y'all, but for me, if we're gonna do a booking fee and a board day, it ought to be the same amount. It's the booking fee would be 62 and every day thereafter is $62 a day. Otherwise, we're already gonna have a nightmare when I have 3 agencies that are laying hands on a guy and they're all got a hold on them.
Yeah.
You know, who's paying? Who's paying? You know, think about all the things we haven't had to deal with on this. We've only had to deal with, one agency at a time. It's gonna get complicated. We're up to the
Standardize
challenge. We'll
this.
do it if this is the direction you wanna go. But I think it needs to be the same amount, whether it's a book-in that day or every day thereafter, it's the same amount of money.
Okay. And I agree. I just wanted to be clear.
Sure,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Ms. Masson, and then you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The incident you showed the video on,
Yes, ma'am.
a Washington County officer encountered the shooter
Right.
in the western part of the county in Tawnytown,
Uh-huh.
maybe? And then they ended up apprehending him.
Came through Fayetteville, back
In
into
Springdale.
Springdale, and then we got him in Springdale.
Who ends up paying for that prisoner? I mean, is it the officer that first
That one may
encountered?
fall on us, and we just don't pay ourselves, right? And that's what I was talking about, if there's 4 agencies involved, because attempted capital murder on our guy, attempted capital murder on a state policeman, capital murder on a Fayetteville officer, and a Springdale guy. Basically, that would fall on Washington County. If we're in that,
Because he
if we're
was
in
the
that mix,
first?
we get it.
Because he was the first, or just because we were involved?
Well, probably because it was our encounter. That would be my initial best guess to throw it out spontaneously. It would
Well,
be
we're
ours.
certainly glad somebody caught him.
But now, let's take Washington County out, and let's say we weren't involved in it, and you got Springdale, State Police, Fayetteville, and somebody else. Well, you got 3 different agencies involved in that one incident, so it just gets complicated.
Well, I'm starting to see that. And who sorts that out? Who
We-
would you
we
send the
would.
bill to?
We would. We would have a bookkeeper that would, we'd give them specific direction on however many people are laying hands on this person and how to divvy up the cost, I guess.
With Madison County using our jail now, did we have a contract with them for how long we do that? Or
It's an annual contract.
I assume the numbers are fairly low for Madison County, but.
You
do
know, they're
what they-
about 20-ish right now. It's pretty high for them, and you figure, for the life of me, I don't know why they don't build a jail, but they're paying us a lot of money.
But we're only contracted with them on an annual basis, so
Right.
we could say, keep your 20 people at home.
Sure.
Are they paying?
Are they paying?
Is Madison County paying? it?
$62 a day.
They're paying $62 a day.
Yeah.
Okay. And nobody else is paying daily except Fayetteville has a booking fee?
So the U.S. Marshal,
Okay.
they pay $62 a day, and they're like clockwork. That's a great contract. And Madison County, for the last couple of years anyway, and then Fayetteville pays
The
booking fee. That's basically it.
Do all the incorporated cities now have their own law enforcement?
Yes.
Because I remember once upon a time, Goshen just relied on the sheriff,
Yeah, they've got their own little department now.
and everybody else does.
Tawnytown's full-blown now.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lindstrom?
I'm just sitting here thinking about how complicated this can actually get. But you go out to serve a warrant, a misdemeanor warrant even, and you check on the guy and you find that 5 other cities also have warrants on him. So you called, you want us to incarcerate this man for you, you want us to bring him to you, you want to come and get him. So all 5 cities get involved with this guy. And he ends up in the jail, so whose guy is he? I don't think they realize that this goes on all the time. And there can be quite a number of cities involved with some of these.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you would handle all of that.
I just know we're not the first to jump off on this. We'll be doing some research and trying not to reinvent the wheel to come up with a correct solution.
Maybe we could do, just whoever actually brought him down and booked him would be responsible for his lodging fee. I don't know. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Harbison?
Should we put a sunset clause in this ordinance at the end for 2 years? Surely we'll have the jail and, we can go on, I think it needs a sunset clause. I think it would be, what do you think, Sheriff?
Thank you for asking. I just think that this is something that if we're able to move forward, if the court, which they already see the need, if we're able to get it out of the court onto the ballot, I think this is something that will allow me to work with the cities to engage and get support for this construction, the passing of this tax, when the construction is done and the M&O kicks in, they stop paying until we have to revisit this 15, 20 years down the road where we're falling short again, and then you revisit it then. But I do think we do need to have that understanding on the front end that we don't charge the cities unless we need the money to cover our expenses. That's my feeling. I hate that we're in the middle of this discussion, but you know what? It's reality. We are falling further and further behind, but I think that we can play this to our advantage with the cities if we will give them some guarantee that once it's built and the quarter-cent tax is being collected and it covers M&O, why would we charge them? So.
Perhaps we need to get the ordinance altered in order to be part of the ordinance. I think that'd be the best way.
Make a motion that we put a sunset clause in this ordinance.
I would think we'd have to kind of be specific as far as.
Well, I would say for 2 years. Well, or when the quarter-cent sales tax
I'd feel more
kicks
comfortable
in.
with that, right. Okay, Butch?
As opposed to, or to reassure the cities that we're not trying to use this as a way of making money, which we're not in the business of making money.
Right.
In our ordinance, let's say the $62 a day ordinance, or $62 a day, or $62 for booking, and then $62 every day after that. We stipulate that this money cannot be used for anything but the jail, for incarcerating people. That's what we have on that quarter-of-a-cent sales tax. That protects any other entity from our, like I said, using that for a source of revenue. We're not in it to make money.
Right.
A sunset clause will not be necessary. You can put a clause at the bottom that says we're going to reduce this amount if we wind up building some kind of reserve. Or, you just keep reducing it if you start building a reserve. And obviously, if we do another quarter-of-a-cent sales tax, it's gonna have that in there that that money can't be used for anything else but running the jail. That eliminates any other court in the future using that for money to build up into the general fund.
That'll be on the ballot, for
It'll,
sure.
it'll automatically stop a future court from bringing in more money than, and putting us in, our county in a position of trying to grow bigger government to spend more money. That's more foolproof than any other kind of clause that, we don't want to leave another quorum court on down the road with something in their lap. Well, we got to do something about this. Our contractual agreement's running out. Respectfully to the other idea of a sunset clause. Thank you.
Harvey Bowman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, listen to this thing about sunset clauses and so forth. Number one, we're making an assumption here that the voters are going to approve this first issue. Number two, we don't know if and when they will. And number three, we don't know when the initial loan will be paid off. And I think personally, we got to go ahead and move ahead with this thing from a standpoint that we got to cover these costs, and we're going to have to make a decision about dropping this if if the conditions we're talking about are met. So there's a lot of ifs out there in that situation that we got to consider. So talking about a sunset clause before we even get approval on a jail construction doesn't make any sense to me at all. So, Mr. Chair, I suggest we've talked about this. I'm going to call for the vote.
There's no motion. We've not made a motion yet. What? There's no motion, so we need a motion first. Okay.
No, that was a sunset. There's no.
No, there wasn't a motion on sunset. So, just so we're all clear, let's go ahead and we'll do it again, Harvey, if you don't mind, and that way we're all clear on what we're doing here.
I'm making a motion that we adopt this ordinance and make the date of implementation January 1, 2020. That's it.
Okay, and is there a second?
Sir?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Yes, ma'am, Ann?
Can we pass an ordinance for a future
Microphone.
court to enforce?
All of our ordinances are for future.
No,
This is no different than the other one I'm aware of.
but it's not going to be enforced until 2020,
Not implemented.
implemented,
Yep.
enforced.
Right.
I, okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to offer a friendly amendment. I'd like to let this implement in January 2019 at half price, $31, and then go to full price, $62 in 2020.
Okay, is that agreeable?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Excuse me, we have a second. Yes, ma'am, please.
Yes, I would. You're welcome.
None of us understand the financial impact on any of the cities on what we're voting for. None of us. I'm hearing that it's gonna cost the city of Fayetteville at the $62, $2.6 million, so the $31 is 1.3. That's dramatic for November 13th. It doesn't matter then we're reducing it, these cities have already done their budgets. And if anybody on this court could tell me how much it would cost Springdale, how much it will cost Farmington, because we don't know. And we're gonna vote on something that we have no idea how it financially impacts the cities that we represent. There's cities within this county, and we don't know the financial impact of what we're voting on. And we're gonna do it ineffective in a month and a half.
I believe he said 2020, so it's next,
No.
the year after.
The amendment is to make it $31 in 2019 and $62 in 2020. That is to be effective in 6 weeks.
Joel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say that we're already incurring these costs, and we have no idea what the cost to the county is for arrest in 2019 either. And while I know that is not comfortable for cities, I would say that we can look at this another way. For many, many years, obviously Fayetteville pays a booking fee, and that's very helpful. Right now, I think Springdale houses their own prisoners to a degree. Every municipality has been bringing their people to us with the exception of the booking fee. But if someone from Fayetteville stays a week or a month or whatever, any additional fees at $62 a day, we are incurring that every year and have been paying that, I won't say for free. Again, my concern with this is that we do charge a countywide jail tax, and I think we need to be fair to people so that we're not double billing them. But at the same time, no one knows what the cost for housing a prisoner is going to be until after he's been set free, and then we know how much. And so while I understand wanting to be fair to cities, none of us are getting a fair break. We're all getting surprised every time, not surprised, we know we're in the business of housing prisoners, but we're all having to pick up the tab. And we've been paying it for these municipalities for quite some time with their help from the county jail tax. I want to be fair. It's not like they're getting a free skate. We're all paying that quarter-cent sales tax. And if you live in the city, you're paying that. And that's one of the reasons why I mentioned making it half price, is because I don't want to double bill them. But at the end of the day, we've had a no-expense jail. Cities in my district, Prairie Grove, Lincoln, when they send somebody to the county jail, they've been doing it for free. Now, obviously not a lot. They're not big municipalities, but those people are being housed at our expense, even though they're arrested inside of a municipality. So I think they've been getting, what we've been doing is giving them a $2.6 million bargain, if you want to use those numbers. I don't think those numbers are correct. And the reason I say that is because they've been paying the jail tax already. So they're not getting the full amount as a bargain. I want to be clear and be fair there. But what we what we might name as a surprise to people is actually the bill we've been paying all along, and we've been surprised each time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Lisa Ecke?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe Fayetteville's already budgeted some money for their booking fees. So they already have, if you want to address the court, you can go ahead. Thank you. Please identify yourself.
Thank you. My name's Greg Tabor. I'm the chief at Fayetteville, for you that don't know me. Golly, where should I start? So the budget was just heard by the city council for the first time tonight. So to say we budgeted, it's in our budget, but that hasn't been approved. What is in our budget is the average that we've used over the last more than that, since 2005, of $62 a day times the number of people that we put in jail. So that number's somewhere around $200,000, a little more. And keep in mind, that's on a one-time booking fee, not a daily rate fee. So, the sheriff and I talk, several times a week. Every year when it comes this time of year, we have this discussion about daily rates and booking fees and all those things. So I don't think I'm too surprised to hear you guys talking about a daily rate. That doesn't shock me a whole lot. I'll have to admit that I was completely taken back by the daily rate for the felons. I've started my career at the sheriff's office, I'm not as old as the sheriff, but almost, so a long time ago. And, it has always been the county's job to handle felons. I mean, as far as I know, since the beginning of time. When we closed our jail at the city, I understand why we needed to pay a booking fee, because we increased their workload by taking all those misdemeanors down there. We did not increase their workload by taking our felonies down there, because the felonies had always went there since the beginning of time. So that's where I've got, I think, hung up the most is this, and I know what this Supreme Court ruling or appeals court ruling says. I know it says you can, but my point is the county has always handled everybody in the county's felony prisoners. It's always been done. And, I don't know what the cost is today. 40 years ago, maybe it was $10 a day. Whatever the cost is, the county bared that brunt since the beginning of time, as far as I know. So I was kind of taken back by that. So we done some quick calculations on numbers, and like Ms. Madison and Mr. Luntram said, there's a million of these crazy scenarios out there that somebody's going to have to be the referee on, whether it's a sheriff or somebody in his office. You know, to Mr. Lundstrom's example, what I can see happening based on his example of Fayetteville encounter somebody that's got a Springdale warrant, guess what? We're not arresting that person on the Springdale warrant, taking him to the jail, and us encounter the fee. We're going to tell them, hey, Springdale's got a warrant for you. You need to go take care of it. And I can foresee that happening all over the county because, once again, that's Springdale's, you know, arrest warrant. Why would Fayetteville pay the county for that? And I'm just saying that because there's hundreds of those weird examples that none of us can sit here and think about tonight, but even though those are two good examples. So I think it's very complicated. And like I said, the felony thing is we run some quick calculation on numbers. I think Ms. Madison got close. If every one of our felonies stay for the whole 30 days, which is the average I think I got from the sheriff from the time they're charged, it's about $2.5 million. Obviously, everybody's not going to stay that whole 30 days, but we got to look at worst case scenario. Then the other thing you got to look at right now is we're paying the $62 per booking. Who knows where that number might go if you start paying a booking rate plus a daily rate. So that number is going to increase substantially also. I'll try to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know Crawford County does it and Benton County does it. What are they doing? Because I understand like a lot of these crazy scenarios that are coming up, and the sheriff's not like, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but kind of what are they doing?
Yeah, I can't speak to specifics about that. I do know, and the sheriff can probably answer this way better than I can. The only one I'm familiar with is Crawford County. I think they charge a daily rate. But how they do all those crazy scenarios, I don't know the answer to.
Sue Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we paying a booking fee on felons?
No, we're not. No.
I meant the city, yeah.
No, we're not.
Okay. So we pay a booking fee on misdemeanors now, and with this new proposal, we'd pay $62 a day on everybody that we put there.
Well, the first time I saw this was when it appeared on the screen there a second ago, so I haven't got to read the whole thing, but I think that's what I hear you guys discussing is $62 booking plus $62 a day on misdemeanors and felons.
Well, I want to assure my seatmate here that I talked to the mayor today while he had Paul Becker on the phone with us, and he's been the financial guru at the City of Fayetteville for a number of years. And Mr. Becker said $2.6 million is what it will cost the City of Fayetteville. So I think that's probably a pretty good projection.
That's a significant amount of money, obviously, for the city.
He's been right on. And my mayor also was somewhat perturbed when we were told last week by the chief of staff that the judge had talked to all the area mayors, and no one had talked to my mayor. He was shocked. So I'd just like to ask the judge's office which mayors had been privy to this information before, because Fayetteville was certainly left out.
What did I say to you when we walked in?
Something about talking to the mayor. I don't remember specifically what you said, or that you talked to him a couple of times, or you tried to talk to him a couple of times.
And he said we are playing phone tag.
That's correct. That's what I said. He told me y'all were playing phone tag. That's correct.
That was since Friday.
That's correct.
Our meeting was Thursday night when we were told that the judge's office had talked to the area mayors.
So I called him
I mean,
Friday.
we only have Fayetteville here, I think, or maybe others, but was it a surprise to the other mayors in the county?
All I could do is call the ones I can call, and some of them I talked to, some of them didn't.
Okay, so that's all I have, thank you.
Butch Pond.
I believe to clarify, and we've discussed several things, right now the discussion is on a $62 booking fee and then $31 per day thereafter for it's not. We're doing 62 and 62.
31 and 31 through the first year, 62 and 62 through the second.
Okay, so
Continuing years.
we're gonna drop to a $31 booking fee, so we keep everything the same. Okay,
There's no booking fee in this ordinance.
there's none in here, that's why. Okay. So it's cutting it in half for a year, and maybe some of the cities will get together and come up with a plan for try to vote for a sales tax and build another pod. Is that okay? I wanted to clarify where we'd all be on the same page, and now I guess I am. Thank you.
Well, I know you're not asking me, but I want to offer my opinion anyway. I think, we're 6 weeks from being at the end of the year here. We are on a tight timeline for budget. I don't like the felony thing at all, just put that out there, but if whatever road you're going to go down, I definitely like to make it effective 1/1 of 20, much better. That gives us some time to plan. Obviously, the city can't come up with, even if you go to the $31 rate, you're still talking, $1 million, $1.5 million, whatever the number is. It's a significant amount of money. It's not something that we can figure out, in 6 weeks' time what to do. So I definitely, if that's the road you're going down, I definitely like the 1/1 of 20 effective date. That gives us some time to plan and figure out what we, the city, are going to do to secure those funds.
Tom Lundstrom.
I understand all of these problems, but when we have a census, we're told on a single day that the cities have just removed $1.5 million from our budget, whether we've got it in our budget or not. So it's a kind of a two-edged sword. And we go through this every census year because the cities can annex and we can't. So they're annexing some of our tax money. And that has cost us money. We hear a lot of talk about the property tax reduction, but we don't hear very much talk about the cities taking over $1 million a year from us because of census growth. So, it's one of those things, it's neither the city's fault or ours. That's the way the law is written. That's what we have to live with. But I remember when we had 3 or 4 mayors in here, not wanting us to alter our road fund money because we'd be taking money out of their budgets and, before they were budgeting. So we've had this conversation a number of times.
I understand.
And I find it very interesting. But we just have to live with the circumstances that we have sometimes. But do you think your city could stand the $31?
There's the mayor.
There's the mayor.
Oh,
No,
I'm glad he showed up.
No, he can't.
Let's finish the council meeting. So where are we? I have a pretty good idea.
We were just talking about charging cities for maintaining their arrest.
Yes, I'm sorry, this is Mr. Jordan, he's Mayor Jordan.
Yes, I'm
the
sorry.
Mayor of
Mayor Lyle
Fayetteville.
Jordan, City of Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Anyway, they had an ordinance where they were wanting to charge the city $62 a night for prisoners. $62 booking fee, $62 a night for housing them. We didn't think that was appropriate while y'all had not done your budget yet either. So the recommendation was made, an amendment was made to reduce it to $31 booking and expense for keeping them overnight until 2020, and then it would go to 62. We started out talking about just starting the whole thing at $62 a night at 2020, but we're really suffering for capital right now to operate our jail. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So I was just asking the chief if we could the city of Fayetteville stand the $31 a night for 2019?
Well, I can tell you, we ran the numbers on the 62. And did they discuss the felons?
We said 2.6 million.
Yeah, it cost us 2.6 million. If you look at my reserve funding right now, I'm sitting at $5 million. So it would take half my reserve funding to fund the 2.5, and within 2 years, my reserve funding would be gone. So I think that would put us in some sort of, which would certainly force the city to raise taxes. I wouldn't
Well,
see,
that's also our problem. Our reserve funding is just about gone.
yeah.
And most of it is gone to, support the jail.
I understand that, but all I'm saying is, from my perspective, in 2 years, my reserve funding is gone.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
So we've got to continue the services, like you do. So if that is gone, then I won't have any recourse but to probably raise taxes to whatever we need. I think I have 2 mil left that I can raise, and then I can't raise it anymore. I don't know what that would generate, probably about 1.6 a year, so I'm still a little short. So what you're proposing is $31, which would be half of that.
Joel Maxwell?
I know you just got comfortable again. Chief Tabor, can I address this question to you? So you mentioned something earlier that I think is pertinent. That obviously if you're having to pay each time you bring somebody in, you're going to monitor and bring in the people that need to be here, but you're not going to bring in, not that you bring in somebody frivolous now, I don't want to be misunderstood, but you're going to be careful. And if it's a Springdale person and the warrant and then the issue and all that is Springdale, then you're going to make a decision. Do we want to pick up the tab and bring them to Washington County, or do we want to see if Springdale wants to serve their warrant and see those people? So if what I'm hearing you say is then you would probably look to decrease where prosecutorial discretion makes good sense, who you would bring to the jail. So is that true?
That's true. I think like I don't know if you're specifically talking misdemeanors or felons or both, but okay, so I think we done that whenever we went to the jail, the county jail first in 2005. We were arresting around 10,000 people a year. I think we've cut that in less than half of that because we write more people tickets, we cite more people out and those kind of things. So I think when you talk to the felony side of it, I think what we would do, we would instruct our officers, instead of a probable cause arresting somebody to take them straight to the jail, we would send that paperwork to the county where a warrant would be issued, and then they would be arrested on that warrant. And my understanding is that would be the information would be filed, and then there wouldn't be a fee to us for that.
So
yes, to answer your question, we would do everything we could to cut that down.
Right, so you cut previously when you went to a booking fee, when you closed your jail, you cut your numbers to half.
That's on misdemeanors.
On misdemeanors, yes. So, but you were able, you found other ways to manage your problems and your processes so that it wasn't super expensive to the city of Fayetteville, or as less expensive as you could make it. And
That's
I would
correct.
assume that you would probably do that in the future if there was a daily fee. So
Even though on the felons, you don't have near as much flexibility, because an officer, if he, just for example, he decides he's going to arrest somebody for public intox, he can give them a citation to appear back in court.
Yep.
On a felony, he can't do that. So
Absolutely.
felons and misdemeanors are a little bit different there.
Absolutely. I guess my point there would be, so we're talking about 2.6 million. That would be the full $62 a day, if I understand that correctly. So we're not proposing that. I also think that, I think I mentioned this earlier, because we do have a countywide jail tax, I think we're already getting part of our money from everybody, whether you live in the city or the county, whatever. So I definitely think that a lower rate is more appropriate so that we're not double taxing. But at the same time, I think the 2.6 million that's if numbers don't change, and they were charged a full $62, and they stayed a full 30 days on average. And I don't know that would be reality. So I think we don't want to put the city of Fayetteville in a hardship financially either. Certainly not to those kind of numbers, because it would run through your reserve, and we feel that pain because we're looking at our reserve, trying to figure out where in the world we're going to make it up when things go south. So hopefully I think the numbers mathematically would be a lot less than 2.6. Be 1.3 the first year, even if you did the full tilt, 30 days for everybody, et cetera. So I think it probably in reality, I hate to guess at that, but I think it probably more in the $500,000 or $600,000 range. If you cut those numbers to half, it would be much less than that. So I want to make sure we're doing fair math, and I want to make sure we're being fair to you guys and not charging you the county sales tax and a booking daily fee too at full price or half price
Well,
one, full price the other.
there's no way we could cut those numbers in half because basically we've done everything on misdemeanors that we can possibly do. I don't see any other way for us to cut our misdemeanors because we've already taken all those steps. And like I said, on the felons there's just, you got less options. Let's not forget something that hadn't been mentioned also, and I think every court and the treasurer might have to talk about this more knowledgeably now, but let's don't forget that for every ticket, every arrest, every district court in this county is also paying $20 for every person that's coming to the county. So that's something else that's being assessed at different municipalities throughout the city.
I think if I'm hearing you correct, where you might cut some of the other arrests that you haven't already, brought down already, it would be when there are other entities involved, like warrants in Springdale, warrants in Rogers, warrants Oklahoma, whatever.
Possibly.
Well, we'd be obviously trying to bring those people in and letting everybody kind of cover their own criminals on that part.
Obviously, we're not going to let public safety suffer because of this. If somebody has a Springdale warrant for some kind of violent offense or something, that wouldn't be the case. But if they failed to show up for court on a speeding ticket, yes, that might be the case.
Absolutely.
Can I say just one more thing?
Use the mic.
The musical chairs here. I have been put at a little bit of in an awkward situation because I really didn't know about this until Friday morning. So you're asking me to make decisions tonight when I really have just had from Friday morning until tonight to see, what this is. I don't know. My finance director's not here. I'm being asked to make decisions on the finances just like that. And I need some time. I don't, Friday morning is, this is like 4 days and I'm the city's being looked at maybe making a $2.5 million, you all are doing that, but that puts the burden on us to pay it. We haven't even passed our budget yet. So it puts us in we've passed our budget, but we didn't figure this into the budget. And we would have had this discussion on the tax levy in October if we had really known that I was going to be here tonight. So, I don't know if 31 will work. I'd have to talk to my finance director, and I think that's proper, but I've only had 4 days to work on this.
Well, I'll just finish with this. One, again, I just want to say, if we were doing the full 62, it would be the 2.5 or 2.6, but we're talking about 31, so I want to make sure we're clear that we're not looking at the full 2.6. Secondly, and that would be worst-case scenario, sound like, as it was discussed earlier. And then last, I just want to be clear, we're not trying to make money on the jail. If we were, we've done a poor job of it for the last however many years. We're not very good business people when it comes to making a profit on the jail. So we're trying to work in conjunction with the cities so that we're not covering expenses that are drowning us at the jail, which is what they're doing right now. This is not some offensive move on our part. This is really just trying to figure out how to put the appropriate fees with the appropriate parties so that everybody's safe, everybody's housed, and nobody's paying too much and nobody's paying too little, that it's truly fair. So that is the heart and the intent, and I just want to let you know that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's just that I've had 4 days really to react to this. We've already, we're in budget discussions and have passed our taxes. So.
We haven't passed our budget yet. We're just discussing all this to move it on to our budget.
And that's kind of where we are. Our budget will have to be passed. The final budget will have to be passed in December. We've got a lot of the budget work done, but it's not completely done. And really that decision, the final budget will not be done until probably next month or.
Well, if you wanted to get with your financial man and come back to us, there's time to do that because our budget.
But it would look like I have 2 days. You're going to be, I can get with him tomorrow and then we'll be back on Thursday, but.
Just wanted to let you know where we're at with ours, so you know.
Cool. So we're looking at, on the 31 days, then we'd be looking at about 1.25. Is that right?
It'd be 1.25 less your daily booking fee because that would be rolled into that.
Okay. Anything else of me?
Harvey Bowman.
I just came out of a council meeting, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of hard pressed right
Thank you,
now.
Mr. Chair. You know, I guess I'm a little bit buffaloed. I think the sheriff, the number he gave us about the total income from this proposal would be less than $2 million from all cities involved. But you're saying it's going to cost over $2 million just from Fayetteville.
Well, and those are numbers that are coming from my finance director. I mean, he was figuring 115 felonies at 30 days came to 213,000 times 12 came to 2.5.
Well, I think the sheriff's numbers were based on actual numbers of what we were seeing down there right
Okay,
now.
and
rather
again,
than-
that was what was the average that we
Rather
saw.
than speculating on 30 days, that dramatically changes the whole picture.
So
And
what is the change? What is the,
So I've forgotten. Sheriff,
what's the numbers?
You remember what the number you thought it would generate?
Jay, about $1.1 million.
$1,000,001.
1.1. That's the felons and misdemeanors, that's all, that's
Yep.
combined.
That's 1.1, and Fayetteville currently has 3,046.
So that's a very small number compared to what you're talking about.
Okay,
And
so there's been, what are we looking at? What do we need to pay here then with your proposal? Get me to a bottom line here. You don't know, okay?
Mayor,
We're all in government work then, aren't we?
Mayor, at this point, what we're trying to do is figure out how to cover some of the deficit here.
Oh,
Because it's costing us nearly $1 million a year.
I understand that.
And so what we're trying to do to mitigate some of that problem.
I understand that.
So, you know, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask for us to vote first on the amendment and then go back to the original motion.
Okay, are there any more questions for Mr. Jordan before he leaves?
You have another one for me?
Okay, all right, we have one over here first and then you. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Ms. Zaki, I'm so
Yes,
sorry.
with all due respect, Mayor Jordan, thank you for being here right after your council meeting. But I only think it's fair to you and our county judge that communication is open between you all. And whether or not you make that contact and that phone call was actually made due to scheduling or being out or whatever, it was made. And the insinuation that
I got a phone call at 4:45 on Friday. I returned the phone call at 8 o'clock this morning.
Okay. So it works both ways, but there was a slur against our county judge that he did not try to reach out and talk to all the mayors about what was coming up, and just so that way we would throw this bombshell on you all and not be prepared. Although we have had to assume a lot of unexpected $1 million expenses when EMS decides to not be serviced to certain parts of whatever, and we're never given any notice on the things that Fayetteville's doing or Springdale's doing. And so if we can set precedents from here forward on giving each other notice, so that way we can prepare for our budget, that would be good on both parts, because there's many a times that the county was never given notice on anything. But we had to assume 1.5 million, another time, another 1.5 million without any notice. So I would like open communication and advance notice to anything that is going on that is going to financially impact the county from this time forward, and that it be reciprocal, if it could be.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
But right now, we're in budget discussions for 2019. We've passed 2018. Now we're looking at 2019. And that, I've got to know about what this is going
Certainly.
to cost, because I got to get with the finance director, and we're working on budget right now.
And we'll do our due diligence.
All right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And for the miscommunication, I do apologize, but I wasn't in Friday afternoon, but I was in this morning. And I
Okay.
did call back about 8 o'clock this
So
morning.
there we have it. Thank you.
We have one more
Thank you,
question.
Judge.
I'm sorry.
Mayor Jordan, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry that you're not getting the best treatment here tonight, but
Oh,
I believe I was.
I've been treated
Point of
worse.
order, that
I
is
believe-
not true.
I believe I was the one that told you, on Friday morning about this potential increase, and at that point, you did not know about it.
I did not.
Okay. What I wanted to ask you, though, was, is our assessor, I guess, what's the mechanism for you all notifying the county assessor of your mills? Because we have to levy your property taxes.
Well, we won't be levying any property taxes. That decision was made in October.
Right, no, but isn't there a deadline for you all to submit to the county so that we can levy, because we levy for all of the taxing
my
entities?
budget?
Yeah.
It's got to be done by December the 31st.
Well, when do you all have to notify us? Because our millage vote is Thursday, and it includes your millage.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to figure out, what I'm trying to say is, I think that we have already given you effectively a deadline to set your millage, and there's no way for you to back that up because it's on our agenda for Thursday.
We made the decision in October not to pass any millage, so we don't have a millage increase right now, so I
Right.
can't go back and do a millage. It's what I'm
Right.
trying to say.
Well, and I think that's partly because of our schedule, because we're the levying entity. And so
Yeah.
since we've already passed that out of committee onto the full quorum court, there's no way for any city to go back now and try to impose a millage to pay for this.
Because once October gets passed and we
Yeah.
haven't, we make the decision whether we're going to pass any millage. I made a recommendation not to pass any millage this year.
Okay.
So the council voted it in, but had I known,
Right.
we would,
You stayed flat, is what you did.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Is that a question for the mayor?
Sir, Mayor Jordan, do you or anyone here that works with you know what you budgeted for booking fees for 2019 or 2018?
Somewhere in the upper 200,000.
Yeah.
68 or something like that.
I could get you closer if I had my finance director. I know it's over 200,000. I just can't
Over
remember.
200,000,
Call it 250.
250,000. Okay, thank you.
Anything
Is
else?
that for Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
One last thing, because we're all over the map and it's hard to speculate, so I just pulled up the email that we got from the sheriff's department. Last year, the total estimated, total county misdemeanor and felonies all combined, billable board days were 19,000, and I'm rounding up.
Okay.
That, at $31 a day for the every municipality in the county, not just Fayetteville, would be $589,000. So obviously, you and Springdale are gonna be and they're not yet, but would be the major contributors to our jail just because of the population.
would
Lincoln
be
and
true.
West Fork and Prairie Grove are probably not gonna be. So even if we only carved out a third of that, that's $200,000. If we give you a half of that, that's looking at less than $300,000. So I just wanna make sure that the sky's not falling and we don't react to 2.6 million when what I think at current booking for 2017, the numbers are a little more consistent with.
Yeah.
Fayetteville could be, if you really round up under those numbers, can't predict the future, but at least in the past, you're looking at about a $300,000 or less if you give Fayetteville half of that responsibility. So I just want to make sure we're level setting that, and I appreciate it, and thank you for.
Yeah, and I'm just working with
listening. I know
numbers I
that's-
get from finance folks and my police chief and.
That's very awkward to get to leave your council meeting and come in here all at once and
Well,
get to jump in this, so I appreciate you doing that.
You're
But
right.
I want to make it where it's not quite so painful and we're down to more realistic numbers. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I'll probably be back. Do you have a question for me?
Yes, sir. I just want to say thank you very much, and I appreciate your patience with us. You should have had those numbers before, and I apologize for that. We'll work our way through this. We'll make sure, whatever you need, you let us know. We'll do our very best to make sure we're all on the same page.
So I want to be sure I got this. So you're talking about if you go to $31 a day, then it'll end up costing me an extra $300,000.
Yeah, for 1 year.
And then it goes to 62 the second year.
Oh, okay.
Should be 62 the first year.
You have time.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
really appreciate it. Okay, are there any other questions on this? Any other discussion? Daniel Balls.
Thank you, sir. I'm for us doing something. I'm going to vote no on this tonight. I don't think we know numbers, what it is. We're speculating. I would rather see something so that we can go to Lincoln and say, this is what it's going to cost you. We can go to Prairie Grove, this is what it's going to cost you. I don't want to see one of these small towns give up a service because we sprung something on them 6 weeks before and something goes bad. I'm for this. I'm not for doing it the way we're doing it here. I think we just need to, I'd rather see some better numbers by city, what it's gonna cost, and like for them to have that number so they could work on that and say, okay, here, we can do this or we can't do this, or we've got to make some changes. I want to do this. I don't want to do it this way. So when I vote no, it's not because I'm against it, it's because I'm for it. I'm just not comfortable doing it right now with so many questions in it. I mean, Arnold Jordan showed up because he's just down the road, but what are the other mayors? Do they know what these are gonna cost? So I'm for this, but I'm gonna vote no on it tonight. There's just too many questions that are out there for me.
So do I hear you saying that you want to table this?
No, let's not table it, no.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I think we need to go through because then they can get, if you wanna vote yes on it, you can get beat up. But I'm for something like this. I just don't think this is the right way to do it, and I'm not gonna say I wanna table it. I don't think it would pass anyways, but
You don't,
I'm gonna vote no on it tonight.
I guess the reason that I asked that question was because if we table it, we can bring it up for discussion. If it fails, where are we? I mean, that's my thoughts. That's just my thoughts. Ann Harbison, I believe you were next.
Brandon, sitting back there, how many people we got in jail today?
We had about 725 this morning.
How many pretrial people do we have?
I think it's 420.
420 times 62. It's 25,000, well, it's 26,000. $26,000 just today. $26,000 that we are having to take care of. You know, we need to do something. The jail at this point is bankrupting Washington County. Over the last 5 years, we've put $5 million into the jail. It's time we make a decision. I'm sorry about the towns and the cities, but they should have known that this was going on a long time ago. They've got a good bargain. And the bargain is that we've been paying for it. And it's time they have got to pick up their fair share. And I'm sure they want to do that. Thank you.
Harvey, did you have something?
Bill, I'd just like to ask again that we go ahead and vote on the amendment first, and then go back to the original motion, which was to implement this full $62 on January the 1st, 2020. Can we please do that?
Ms. Masson?
I just wanted to say that the Supreme Court decision that authorized for the first time for the county to charge cities for felonies was decided on February 8th of 2018. So that's a very short period of time for cities to have been prepared for this reality. And so to say that cities should have seen this coming, they should have known, they might have been prepared for it for misdemeanors. But I think that Chief Tabor and Mayor Jordan's point about imposing this for felons, which have always been the county's responsibility, this is not something anybody's anticipated because this Supreme Court decision didn't come out until just a few months ago. So, again, this is too much, too fast. I don't know how much it's costing cities. I don't know that all the mayors know. I mean, it affects the University of Arkansas, and we've not thought about that. So I will be voting no, and I encourage my fellow JPs to do the same. And for parliamentary procedure, I think that the author of the original motion accepted the amendment, so I think it's all merged into one.
I would assume that we're ready to vote for this, but I'll just say it one more time. I do not want this thing to die. We have absolutely, as the Quorum Court, I've been on the Quorum Court 6 years, we have kicked the can down the road and kicked the can down the road and not made any decision. I think this is important enough that we do need to do it. I don't feel like, with all that we've heard tonight, I'm not really sure we can make a wise assessment tonight. As chair of the committee, that's just my suggestion. Y'all are the ones that are in control here. as far as if we table this or if we don't.
Mr. Chair, are you inviting a motion to table?
That's what it sounds like.
I'd like to
Then
make
I
a
would move
motion
to
to
table.
table until the next Budget and Finance meeting.
That's correct.
Yes, Ms. Madison has the floor. Thank
Then
you.
my motion to table will be to table it until our chair sets it for the next Budget and Finance Committee meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All right, so all in favor of tabling, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, 3 people, no. All right, we'll show hands, or we'll just have a roll call, that way it'll be documented.
Daniel Balls. Yes. Harvey Bowman. No. Alicia Devons. No. Robert Dennis. No. Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Colleen Browning.
No.
Tom Lundstrom.
No.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joel Maxwell.
No.
Joe Patterson.
No.
Butch Pond.
No.
Fred Rouse.
No.
Okay, so the motion failed, so we're back to the original motion. And Ms. Patty, if you would mind, if you could read that to us, what the original motion, amended motion that Joel had.
Is to charge $31
Yes, ma'am,
per day. And then the second year, 62.
yes,
This is just to pass the ordinance to the full court.
that's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we're voting to pass this on to the full quorum court, which is this Thursday. Mr. Maxwell.
Point of clarification. Does this go immediately, since this is an off-scheduled budget and finance, will it go immediately for Thursday night, 2 nights from now? Or will it be for the following to give time to publish?
I mean, normally it would go to this one. If you want to change the motion to make it go to the next one, we can do that. Right. Right. It'll take effect February 1st, if
And
that's
I
the
think
case.
I would make the motion that would give some of these cities whatever time to have another thought and a little bit of time to digest that, so I would make the motion that this be for December's full quorum court.
Okay, all in favor? So the motion, so let's vote on the first, well, but it was an amendment to the motion, so now we're back to the original motion.
Okay, point of order. There's a motion on the floor, and there's a second. And then there was a second motion made, which was out of order. It can either be an amendment to that, but then we need to vote on the amendment.
I thought that was what we just did, if I didn't make that clear, but we were voting on Joel, the amendment to move it to December's court.
Well, may I comment on that?
Yes, ma'am.
I think there are a lot of people that have this issue closely tied with the millage issue. And I think with both of them, with the millage issue being on Thursday, I think that they deserve to be considered together because of their impact on citizens. And so I think spreading these out into 2, if we're going to pass on a budget tonight and vote on it Thursday, we need to know about all of these issues at the same night. And I don't know that the mayor's going to just come up with $1.3 million by December and suddenly work it all out, because he can't change his millage. So I think for efficiency's sake, all of this should be on Thursday night's agenda. Because if it doesn't pass, realize it has to go through 3 readings. So if it doesn't have enough votes, this could take a long time. And I think we need to get this done if we're going to get it done. So I think it should be on Thursday's agenda.
So we're going to vote on Mr. Maxwell's amendment, which is to move this to the December meeting. Okay, I know, but we're okay.
Okay. J.P. Maxwell made an amendment. Did the original mover and seconder of the motion approve that amendment, or was there a second to the amendment, or where do we stand with this amendment?
He did make the motion. I believe there was a second. Was there a second? I thought somebody over here seconded it.
So this one has been properly,
Properly moved and properly seconded.
and we're going to vote on the amendment.
We're going to vote on the amendment. We're voting on the amendment. So all in favor of moving this to the December meeting, well, we'll start with all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Okay, Miss,
Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Alicia Devons.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
No.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
No.
Colleen Browning.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
No.
Fred Rouse.
No.
7-7.
yep, so it's a tied vote, and I move it to December. So that's a yes. Now we need to vote on the actual ordinance. And just to clarify, it's $31 for the first year, then it'll jump to 62. And so we'll start with all in favor.
Call for a roll call.
Okay.
Roll call, we're done with it.
Yep, okay.
Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Alicia Devons.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Colleen Browning.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Joel Maxwell.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Rouse.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes. Okay, so the next thing is the budget discussion. And I have in front of you, we have two budgets. One's on one side and one's on the other side. And this is the discussion that I was wanting to have earlier, because I think this pretty well speaks volumes. If we just do the 3% raises, we do nothing for the sheriff, we do nothing for the road, and Mr. Durrett has asked for 3 people, we can only afford to do 1 person. And this is what it would look like. And in any business, you want to keep at least 5 to 10% in reserves. This puts us below 5% in reserves. Even if we don't pass the sheriff's stuff, we're still in the negative. And if that's what we wish to do, we can certainly do that, and we'll kick the can, and we'll be down another. And then next year's court, we will be passing something on to the next year's court to deal with. And we can do that. But my suggestion is on the second page, if you turn to the other side, it includes, by passing the millage, it includes the sheriff's program. It includes bringing the road department up, which they've lost as many people. They're having a terrible time hiring enough people to work at the road department. And it would give Mr. Durrett what he needs. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to take just a moment and read part of an email that Mr. Durrett sent to me. And he said that he's in need of help. He said, each year it gets harder and harder for me to get by with what we have. In 2013, we filed 2,147 new felony cases. This year, we are on track to file over 4,000. That's an increase of nearly 90%. In that time, we've added case coordinator positions as well as a victim assistant, new victim assistant. The number of legal assistants has remained the same. So eventually, we have the same number of people responsible for twice the work. And that's why they're asking for 3 people, is to help them. And so I think so we have two opportunities here. We have two proposals, and honestly, we have to have a Plan A and a Plan B going into the quorum court meeting this week. That if the budget passes, this is what we'll get. If the millage passes, this is what we get. If the millage does not pass, this is what we get. I don't see any way we can afford anything different. Now, I'm the chair, and I'm opening up to questions. Y'all know what I think, and I want to hear what you think. Okay? Ms. Masson?
So I have some questions about the budget, as I understood this would be our final opportunity to ask them.
Yes, ma'am.
I am curious about in the quorum courts budget, there's a reduction in other professional services from $10,000 to $1,000, and I understand that is what we use to pay the city of Fayetteville to,
Yes, ma'am, and I can explain that.
okay.
The city of Fayetteville was filming all the quorum court meetings, and that's where that money came from. And we figured out that our IT department could do that at no extra cost to the county, and so that's a savings.
Well, where will the meetings be posted? Because right now they're broadcast through the city's channel, and if we don't have a contract with the city, they can't film them. They can't show them on TV.
My understanding is that they can still show them. They show all the other people. The only thing that changed is that we don't have to pay somebody to come down here and to film it. That's what we were doing before. We were paying the city to come down here and to take care of that, and we've got our own people doing it now.
But we have to have a contract with the city of Fayetteville to broadcast them, because that's the only way people can see them.
I don't know the details of that particular part. I just know that the savings is from us not having to hire somebody. We were paying people and we're not anymore. I'm not sure what the contract is that we have to have in order to get that on the air. I don't know that there's any charge for it, but we can certainly find out.
It's the city of Fayetteville's channel, so, I mean, if we want to be on it, and this court has passed an ordinance requiring that our meetings be recorded and accessible to the public. I'm curious, so their planning has a $10,000 capital expense for a vehicle, and Buildings and Grounds has a $50,000 capital expense for a vehicle. And if you look at the logic, I'm not really following this. So Buildings and Grounds is asking for 2 new vehicles to replace older vehicles, but planning is asking for $10,000 to buy a used vehicle. And I guess I don't understand the logic between why some people get new cars, some people get used cars, because I would take used cars over new cars if they work for some departments. And I don't understand, it seems like we're buying used cars that we're replacing in other departments, which,
Chief, could you answer that for us?
I'm on Buildings and Grounds on page 18 in our budget expenditures.
It's $10,000.
Well, Buildings and Grounds is seeking $50,000 for 2 new vehicles, and Planning is seeking 10 for a used vehicle, and I'm just wondering why Buildings and Grounds cannot do with used vehicles.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I hadn't proposed
And then
for that range.
Okay, and then in the Buildings and Grounds budget, there's the other professional services line item is going up $120,000 from $230,000 to $350,000.
I didn't realize that we're going to come and look at each line item for each division and the judges. So I thought we were past that, Bill.
Well, we haven't done it, and
Well,
this is our last opportunity to ask questions. The Buildings and Grounds budget also has.
I'm not prepared to discuss it because I don't have it before me. And we discussed all of it with Bill, and we were in agreement that, as chairman.
It wasn't brought to the full committee, so, I mean, we're presented with a budget that's down to line items, and for instance, like, one of my questions is why Buildings and Grounds needs airfare of $2,500. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And then there's in financial management, is that, what department is financial management?
That's your general services.
Is that purchasing?
That's, yes.
Okay, there's a change in other professional services, which we don't know what they're for, and no one's given us justification for increases. There's a few notes throughout the budget that tell us the reason for changes, but not all of them, and not even for significant ones. There's a change of
We can go through each line item and say, hey, this line item increased. We were looking at the bottom line on each department with a 3% reduction. So that's where we were at. Justification on each one, if you want to go through each one, then I'll be prepared, but I'm not prepared tonight to go through each line item per se on every department.
Okay. Well, I think on Thursday you were here when I asked, would the whole budget be up on Tuesday so that we could ask all the questions we had? Because like, for instance, in the archiving budget, the other professional services line item is going from $22,000 to $39,500. And there's a note that talks about a museum set up. Is the county opening a museum?
I'm not prepared to discuss any of this on the
It says
line
per
items
Carl and the
tonight.
county judge that there's an initial museum set up.
I'm still not prepared. You can ask all these questions, but I'm not, if we want to go over line item per line item, then I need to know where we are, you know, and what the questions are.
Well, I'm going through them.
Okay, but
So-
I'm not answering any.
That's pretty clear.
If you could write those down and get them to him, we'll have
Well,
all the
they're-
answers.
They're gonna be recorded because I've just got my rough notes.
But if you'll excuse me just for one moment, I would like to say that what I did was, instead, we can talk about line item by line item, but the bottom line is what they've done with their budgets, and they've cut where they can. I think that if we start trying to second guess every single line item, we could be here a real long time, and we would not accomplish anything at the end of the day.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, this is the quorum court's most important function, is reviewing the budget, and I'm being told to trust it. And I have questions about the content of the budget. We approve on a line item basis, and our budget controls, to some extent, lock people into those line items. If I have a question about a line item, I'm entitled to an answer.
Yes, ma'am, you are.
And I have another question. The other professional services line item in the human resources budget shows an increase in the consulting fee to $39,240. I assume that's Johansson Brothers Consulting? We don't know.
It's not that I don't know. I'm not prepared to just go through and answer every line item.
Okay? And
That's
I
where
had-
we're going.
Well, that's what our job is. And
Well,
I had previously asked, I've raised this on 2 prior occasions, about changes to the county attorney's budget, where he has got an increase of $5,000 in other professional services that's unexplained. He has an additional charge of $5,000 for airline expenses. And I said previously, he's also got an increase of $3,000 in meals and lodging. You know, every bit matters. Every bit matters, because we don't know what our revenue sources are gonna be. And I'm very disturbed at what I hear about our county attorney going off to Washington DC and staying in 5-star hotels
Point of
for
order.
thousands of dollars.
All right, just a moment. Ms. Madison, I believe that they went there for a specific purpose, and Ms. Ecke was there. She went on that trip, and I think she can kind of shed some
And
light
they
on that.
stayed at the Hay Adams Hotel, and I have the floor. And
This is against what you have already said as part of our processes, Mr. Chair.
so I'm gonna be denied the opportunity to ask about line items in the budget.
No, ma'am, if you'll send those questions to me, I'll make sure they get answered.
Okay, well, I'm
It's
sending
just
them right
we're
now.
just doing them all right now. You should have done your homework before and done this. That's what
We
what
have
the
not had
process
the
is.
opportunity to ask any questions about the budget. No budget has been put on the agenda. People have come and they've discussed very discrete issues, and this court has not been given the opportunity to ask questions about this budget. We have been every year I have been on the court, we have been given the opportunity to ask questions, and I am frankly very concerned that there is an attempt to shut down questions by members of this court about the content of this budget.
Point of order, let's just keep decorum.
I am
And you
keeping
don't have to
decorum.
be-
I
no,
am
ma'am,
frustrated that
just being a
my
little
one
angry.
legislative duty is being denied to me.
Nobody's denying
No.
anything, Ms. Masson. There have been.
Well, when is our next budget
Every-
meeting scheduled for us to be able to get answers to these questions?
If you'll send those to me, I will get those to you before Thursday.
When is our next budget meeting to get answers to the questions about the content of the multi-million-dollar budget that we are being asked to approve?
I just told you, if you'll send those to, I'll get you to.
But the
get
quorum
them.
court is Thursday night. The Budget Finance Committee cannot meet before Thursday or on Thursday.
That you're absolutely correct. And, again, there have been multiple opportunities to ask these questions as we've gone through.
No, there have not. These budgets have never been on our agenda, so that is why I asked last Thursday if at this meeting we would be able to ask all questions. And no one corrected me. No one said no. I was told this would be the final budget discussion, so I came with my questions. So in the environmental affairs budget, there's reference to a Nissan Armada that was removed. So I was curious where that went and if there were funds, because I'll note that I have asked about the sale of auction items and where those proceeds have gone, and I have still not gotten an answer. I've lost the place of, there is in the Veterans Affairs budget, there is a request for $1,000 in mileage when my understanding is they don't have a vehicle. It's a new expense, so I'm curious as to where they have acquired a vehicle that's requiring us additional cost. And then, I know Mr. Hill is here, and it's my understanding that he is going by past quorum court's recommendations on how to apportion the 1% sales tax. That is not a county ordinance, and this court needs to take action on where that revenue goes before this budget can be finalized. I will do my best to write all my comments and provide them to Ms. Burnett, but I find it very shocking that we're being asked to approve a budget and we're being denied the opportunity to get any information on the content of that budget. That is not the way this court should be doing business.
I don't think anything was denied. I don't think anything at all. There was plenty of opportunity. Ms. Sue Masson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to say that by instructing my colleague to email her comments, the public is denied the opportunity to hear the discussion or to know what those questions are. And what this court has always done is look at each department's budgets. And we all have questions and we all find issues to talk about. And for some reason, we haven't done that this year. And I'm grateful for the work that you have done, but that's not the way a legislative body works. We all have a role, not just the chairman. And I know it's been a lot of work for you, but we have to remember that part of the reason we have these meetings in public is for the public to hear.
Yes, ma'am, and
It's not happening.
every one of those questions will be answered publicly.
Thank you.
And so, again, I don't know how else to do this, but we have two budgets, one if the millage passes, one if it does not. And I'm open for discussion on that, Ms. Harbison.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we send the 3% raises and the sheriff, judge, prosecuting attorney increases with the changes shown in budget summary effective of millage increase from 3.9 to 5, net increase in overall budget for sheriff's steps, and it gives the number, net increase in jail budget for sheriff's steps, net increase for judge increases, net increase for prosecuting attorney increases, and the 2019 cash flow estimates for new financial software, the 2020 cash flow estimate up to $350,000 addition. I didn't read those numbers. I make a motion that we send this to the full quorum court on Thursday.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Discussion? Which bond?
In this motion, is this stipulating that the millage will be increased? I'm trying to verify. That's part of the language of the ordinance, that the millage will be increased.
If we accept, if this is what we're passing to the full quorum court, that's the stipulation.
And we're passing this on to the full quorum court.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then I will be voting to approve this with the stipulation that we pass the millage in order to support it. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion?
I don't know if I need to make a motion to sever the millage increase from the budget. This may be very interesting to put the two together. I just,
No,
my
sir.
fear is that something may sink or swim based on the other part of this. So it sounded like, if I understood J.P. Harbison's motion, it sounded like this was being put forward as it is on 2 of 2. Are they labeled differently? No, they're labeled the same. The one showing the 3% raises the millage increase from 3.9 to 5. That she's putting basically the content of this forward as one single motion, both the millage increase and the, that's what I thought I heard. So that's why I'm trying to clarify.
Yeah.
Goes to the full quorum court
Microphone.
Is it in total, or is it?
Well, we'll have to do it. We'll have to do the budget and the millage increase. They will be separate motions, but they're all on this one sheet, so I'm proposing that we send this to the full quorum court for consideration.
But just so that I understand, so they're two separate issues?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
They have to be. Okay, is there any other discussion on this? Butch Bond?
One other point. I'm voting on this tonight, but I'll not vote for this budget before we have that millage increase, because I just don't see it as being fiscally responsible.
Right.
Thank you.
And the plan is to, Ms. Patty, if you can make sure that the millage is before the budget, so that we'll know in the order for the quorum court. And so is there further discussion on this? Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One additional comment. Obviously, we're talking about the millage to make sure we understand how much revenue that we're going to have at our disposal. I think we won't be voting on it until December, but I think the other piece of revenue that is potential out there would be whatever the booking and detainee fees would be for those 19,000 billable bed days. So that would be the one piece of revenue that is not accounted for on this sheet. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. And on this sheet, we've got $908,000 coming out of general budget to cover that cost. And so you're right, there'll be some offset there, hopefully. Okay, so we're going to, is there any other discussion? So we're voting on moving this budget to the full quorum court, make sure that Ms. Masson gets her answers. And so, Ms. Patty, would you do the roll call on this?
Daniel Balls?
No.
Harvey Bowman? Alicia Devon?
Yes.
Robert Dennis? Lisa Ecke?
Yes.
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Colleen Browning?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom? Eva Madison?
No.
Sue Madison?
No.
Joel Maxwell? Butch Pond.
Yes.
Fred Rouse.
Yes.
6 to 5. 6-4, 5 again.
Yeah, 6-5. Yeah, we're just, you just need a simple majority to pass it on to the full court. Okay, is there other, it passed. Okay, is there any other business? Yes, ma'am, please.
So to pass a budget, it has to have 10 votes. So just think about that, because it had less than a majority of the court tonight supporting it. So we have our work cut out for us on Thursday.
Absolutely.
We still need 8 votes.
So are there any other motions? Is there any public comment?
Oh, you have a question?
Yes, sir. No.
I don't normally do this, but I did want to clarify, there was some discussion about Justice of the Peace Madison sending questions to you. She should not do that.
Oh, no, she won't. She'll
All right.
send them to Miss Patty. And Miss Patty will
I understand
send them to the
that's
right
how it
place.
should be done, but there was
Yes.
an exchange
No,
about her
absolutely.
sending questions to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
for-
and can I just say, I think it's a little suspect still that I send them to her and she sends them to him. I don't think it works. I think the questions should only be answered in public.
That's between
Okay.
all of you. I was going to say, I was going to ask,
Yeah, no.
anything that goes to any of the JP's email questions, that, will you also send them to me?
Which responds to your FOIA request, but doesn't cure FOIA for public notice, so.
Right.
I do the best I
Yeah,
can.
we're go-
No, I'm trying to make sure you know I'm mindful of my obligations.
And I am too. And thank you very much for making that comment. Do we have a second? Motion to adjourn second. All in favor? Any opposed?